Hello, dear viewers. Support me by subscribing to my channel and share my video if you like it. And also, make sure you comment your thoughts. Now let's start the video.
Harry had asked all the Avengers with their loved ones, Fury, Coulson, and Maria Hill, to join them for the evening. He had called it a year-end function of sorts. It was a couple of months after the one-year anniversary of Harry having come to this reality, and he thought it was a good way to get everyone together. Fury had actually shown up by means of the Avengers house portkey along with Coulson, Hill, Steve, and Clint and his family. The kids were really excited to come, as they had been promised that Harry would show them some of the magical creatures sometime. Fortunately, the event fell on a Saturday. Harry would only need to go back and get to work on Monday. Harry smiled as he looked over everybody from his place behind the bar. Fury was in discussion with Eric about possibly working together again in the future, while he kept an eye on Loki and asking Eric how he had been handling Loki's presence. Eric was happy to report about their initial meeting, and Fury actually smiled. He even looked slightly envious. He wouldn't try anything in front of Odin, though Harry had to promise that Loki wouldn't leave the island. Clint was showing Puppy, who was bathing again, to his children. From a distance, of course, with Laura keeping a strict eye on them while she was talking to Natasha. Natasha had no idea what Harry had called them all together for, but had a suspicion it wasn't just for get-together. Logan, Steve, Bruce, Sif, and Thor were discussing the creatures while making plans for possible future excursions to more dangerous locations. Sif and Thor were quite looking forward to a bit of action, and Harry was considering sending them into the ocean for underwater creatures. Logan was just happy to not have to lead those missions when Steve was around. Their friendship had become a strong one, once Logan remembered all of their shared past. His memories had started coming back on their own, and Logan no longer needed to use the pensive to recall them. Bruce thought he'd have all his memories back in the next couple of months. He and Steve were often seen discussing what he had remembered most recently. As for Bruce, he was happily speaking for Hulk when the big guy had something to say. He was just happy to be included in the planning process, as the creatures they brought back would help him to make more potions. Jane and Darcy were also around, speaking to the guests. Jane looked slightly uncomfortable. While Darcy was enjoying meeting the Avengers and their friends, she was slightly upset that she couldn't tell anyone, but resolved to enjoy it anyway. Coulson was discussing something with Pepper while Tony hovered, since they seemed to be on friendly terms. Apparently Tony was trying to irritate Phil, but he just smiled that patient smile of his as always. Pepper would smile warmly when Tony got frustrated by that and just continue her conversation. Apparently Phil had not had the chance to see his girlfriend too much after he started working with his team, even with the portkey Harry had provided. Odin, Frigga, and Loki had decided to stay with Harry at the bar. "Come now, Harry, you and I both know a setup when we see one. What do you have planned?" Loki asked. "It's a surprise. Telling anyone would spoil it." Harry said, "Very well, but you'll remember that we are on a truce for the duration of this evening only." Loki said, "Not a problem." Harry said distractedly, looking over at Natasha before looking at Frigga. Frigga must have sensed something, because Harry could see surprise and excitement before she quickly hid it. He nodded at her unasked question and turned back to the guests. Everyone had enjoyed the pre-meal snacks and drinks, which Harry had ordered from a catering company. He had had them explain how everything was to be served and made some trays that floated around so that everybody had a chance to sample everything. People were in smart casual clothing and were expecting some sort of speech from Harry. So when the time came, he started floating in the tables and chairs. People started taking seats wherever they felt comfortable, and Harry got Natasha's attention. Once everyone was seated and had their drinks, she came up to him as he walked to the place he had decided would be the front, right beside the pool, so that he was slightly illuminated by the glowing water behind himself. When he and Natasha were standing in front of everyone, Harry lifted a hand and a platform appeared underneath them and lifted them up a couple of feet so everyone could see. "Good evening, my friends," Harry started. "I'm very happy you could all be here tonight. First off, let's start with how things will work from here on in. If you look in front of you, you will find a menu with some dishes that you can choose from. All you need to do to receive your meal is pick it up and say what you want from the menu. But before all that starts, I'd like to quickly just thank a couple of people who has made this last year one of the better ones of my life," he said. He looked over at Phil and lifted his glass to Phil Coulson. "I am very grateful that you were the first person I met. Without your friendship and support, I doubt I'd have been able to do as much as I have or be the person I am now." The people gathered toasted, and Phil stood up. "You're the one that offered me the opportunity. I am lucky to call you a friend," he said modestly. "You chose to trust me when you had no reason to believe in me and the people I represented." There were some nods, and Harry continued, "You earned that trust anyway." Then Harry turned to Fury. "Thank you, Director Fury, for giving me the chance. I doubt you know how much I appreciate everything you did for me as well." Harry then turned to Bruce and Tony, who were sitting at the same table. "I must also thank Bruce and Tony for their support and friendship from the moment they met me. Bruce has always been supportive of me, and I appreciate his efforts in the field of potions. Without those efforts, our future would be a much darker place. Tony, you've quickly become one of my best friends. Thank you for not killing yourself and Pepper while you did your research into runes. Both of you have astounded me with what you have achieved in such a short amount of time." He raised his glass again in toast, and the guests followed suit. Don't sell yourself short, Harry. You may not know as much as we do now, but you started us out on these roads. Without you, we'd not have the security we do now. The possibilities you have opened for us changed our lives as well. Bruce spoke up then. Hulk agrees, and let's not forget, without you, I'd probably still be fighting him daily. There was another toast to that. Harry thanked Bruce and continued, to the rest of the team and my friends. Thank you for making me feel welcome and deciding to be part of my life. Each of you have made it a joy to wake up in the morning. Whether it's a walk on the beach to infiltrating enemy territory, you've always had my back and I hope to always call you friends. To my new family, King Odin, Queen Frigga, Thor, and even Loki, thank you for welcoming me into your lives. It has been a genuine pleasure getting to know each of you. Harry then paused. Well, maybe not so much Loki, he said with a smile. Thankfully, some people laughed. But seriously, I've not felt as welcomed as I have been in Asgard in years. Maybe it's the fact that every time I show up, you guys decide to throw a party. Harry smiled at them. Odin stood up. Do not feel too honored. We enjoy a feast as much as anyone and make use of any excuse to be merry. Maybe even more now that we've got the drink you supply, he said with a smile. People laughed and cheered. Considering most of them were drinking butterbeer and fire whiskey, they understood the sentiment. Harry smiled as well and continued, I have been working to ensure people's safety and health wherever I can. Bruce and Tony have been helping me extend that help to far more places than I thought possible. I was even able to help Asgard protect their people and a couple of the other realms. I've been doing as much as I can and support for me has sprung up every step along the way. For that I thank all of you. Harry said sincerely, but I must thank someone else who has stood by me for a while as well. Harry said as he turned to Natasha. Natasha, when we met I knew there was something special about you. Never mind that you gave me the wrong name and acted like a dainty flower. People chuckled knowing she was anything but, over the last couple of months. You've stood by me and taken care of me, even when I didn't know I needed taking care of. Harry looked her straight in the eye. You have opened up to me and showed me that my first instinct was right. You are a wonderful person even when you don't see it yourself. You have worked your way into my heart and I can honestly say I love you more than I thought possible. Harry's hand waved and some soft music started playing. He conjured some fairies to float through the air around them as the lights dimmed ever so slightly and lit candles appeared on every table. He took her hands in his. Thank you, Natasha Romanoff, for giving me a glimmer of hope that all the pain I've gone through so far in my life might have had a purpose, despite the mistakes I've made. He said, then he went down on one knee. The moment he did that, there were some squeals of delight from some of the ladies in attendance, Frigga and Pepper mostly, but neither Harry nor Natasha noticed as Harry's eyes seemed locked to hers as much as hers was to his. And that's why I've decided to ask you, Natasha Romanoff, would you do me the great honor of becoming my wife? He asked nervously. He flicked a finger while he still held her hands and the box in his pocket flew out and opened in front of her so that she could see the ring. It was stylish and looked delicate with all the details making it look like a bouquet of flowers. A gold band with small rubies, sapphires and emeralds arranged around a slightly larger diamond in the middle. The one his mother had been given. Apparently it had been in the family for generations. It was not enchanted when he found it, as apparently every Potter man was expected to add their own enchantments for it. There was utter silence as everybody strained their ears to hear how she would answer. Harry's heart felt like it could give out at any moment, so hard was it beating. He did not know if she was ready for it, but once she had seen some of his worst and still accepted him, he knew he was. Natasha looked at him for a moment. She could not believe it. This was what he had been keeping secret. She knew she loved him more so than she could believe her heart capable of. The only question that mattered to her though was if she saw herself by his side for the rest of her life. When she thought of that, she smiled, knowing there could only be one answer to that question. Yes, I will marry you, she said softly, her decision only having shown for a split second in her eyes beforehand. Her answer was meant only for him, but that did not stop everyone from hearing anyway. Harry's answering smile as the ring lifted from the box and hovered in front of her was so radiant, it made her feel guilty for the extra second she had taken to answer, before she too smiled equally happily. Harry let go of her hand to grasp the ring and slipped it onto the offered finger. The moment the ring was on her finger, Harry got up and kissed her as hard as he thought appropriate in front of the children in attendance. The guests applauded as loud as they could. His family were the first to reach him just as he let her out of his embrace. He was soon grabbed by his family for hugs of congratulations. As Frigga approached her, Natasha's eyes showed only shock while she looked at her hand. Is everything all right, my dear? She asked worriedly. I don't know, Natasha said in confusion. The ring is doing something. I feel like it's trying to connect with me. Frigga just smiled at her. Do not worry, knowing Harry, it's probably something special just for you. Then she embraced the girl. You will be the most envied woman in any world for the heart you have stolen, and I welcome you to the family. Our Harry could not have made a wiser decision or made me happier. Natasha smiled back. She had not even considered it yet. She had been an orphan all her life. The idea of now being welcomed into a family touched her deeply. Being accepted by this woman into her family was one of the most wonderful feelings she could have imagined. Tears were soon welling up in her eyes as the pure joy filled her heart. She could not remember ever being so happy. She had lost so much in her life that the idea of being so loved was something she had never expected. Thank you, is all she managed to say. She was soon embraced by all the guests and given congratulations while Harry was experiencing much the same treatment. All the women wanted to see the ring and mentioned how beautiful it was. It is a family heirloom. Harry once mentioned it, it was his mother's. Natasha said with a soft smile. Then his family had good taste. Darcy said, "You're a lucky girl." She then turned to Frigga. "Did you know that Harry is considered the most eligible bachelor in the world?" "I did not." "But it is not unexpected," Frigga said fondly. "Many of the ladies of Asgard will be quite upset when they hear of his proposal. It was very beautifully done. Many were saddened to hear that he already had a paramour." "Yes, these fairies were a nice touch," Pepper said as she looked around them where the fairies still hovered around Natasha, tinkling like little bells. Harry in the meanwhile was being slapped on the back and toasted by the men. Logan handed out cigars and lit one for himself. "If this isn't the occasion for a cigar, I don't know what is," he said. "Considering your healing factor, you probably don't even have to worry about cancer either." Harry chuckled. "I know of a couple of spells for smokers if you're interested. I think they were designed for pipes though," he offered. "Nah, I only smoke on occasion. The animals don't like it." Logan explained. "What kind of spells?" Tony asked interestedly, puffing on his own cigar. "Oh, things like flavor enhancement, extending its life, making it so you don't need to worry about the ash or the odor it leaves in a room. Things like that." Harry supplied. "The ash and the odor is part of the experience though," Tony said. "So you're the youngest and already engaged." Loki spoke up. "You do realize that's going to make Mother unbearable from now on, right? She's hardly going to give me a hard time about it," Harry said easily. "Harry is right, of course. The only people who will suffer are you and your brother." Odin spoke up with a smile. He was looking at his own cigar, wondering if he'd like to try it. Not wanting to give offense, he put it in his mouth and lit it like he had seen the others do. "Of course, if you don't start looking soon, they will probably have children by the time you found your own companions. Imagine your mother's reaction when that happens," he said. He liked the taste of this cigar. It was much the same as the pipe. "Maybe Harry could get them some of these as well. You will just have to wait before making me an uncle then." Thor smiled at him. "Is this what I have to look forward to?" Harry asked. "Now that we're engaged, you're going to expect us to start producing children once we're married." "You have plenty of time, my son. Frigga and I waited a couple of thousand years before Thor came along." Odin placated him. "Well, I don't know that I'll wait that long," Harry replied. "You better not," Tony spoke up. "I'd like to meet your magical little monsters in my lifetime still. If you're so worried about that, maybe you should start helping Bruce with that transmutation potion of his. I suspect he could use your help to turn gold into adamantite," Harry said with a little smile. "And just imagine, he could one day maybe even figure out how to make a sorcerer's stone. It is down the same path of study he's going, after all." "Sorcerer's stone?" Tony asked. "Also known as the Philosopher's Stone. It can reputedly transmute any metal to gold and produces the elixir of life, which makes the drinker immortal. Only one alchemist has ever achieved the feat back in my home world." Harry shrugged, knowing it would catch Tony's interest. "Gold immortal," Tony gaped. "Wait, why haven't I seen any references to it in the library?" Bruce asked. Harry actually laughed. "You don't think I gave you access to everything, did you?" he asked Bruce. "You can only see about a fifth of the whole library." "There's more?" Bruce asked incredulously. Harry looked him straight in the eye. "It's magic. The fields of study can take even you years. The one man that ever made the Sorcerer's Stone was also a genius, so you might never be able to figure it out on your own. What Tony is studying might just help you achieve something only one man ever has before." Bruce and Tony looked at each other with a gleam he had never before seen in their eyes. Then they walked away and started discussing what they had just heard. "Are you so intent on saving everyone that you would turn all of mankind immortal?" Odin asked with a calculating look. "It might not be a wise course of action to take," he warned. "Oh, I know that," Harry said. "I'm not certain, but I suspect that immortality comes with a price. The alchemist Nicholas Flamel and his wife never had any children. Besides, I'm more interested in the life-saving effects of the elixir, not the life-sustaining effects." Odin had a thoughtful look. "You've already thought this through," he stated. "You're actually hoping that they decide to help each other become more than their sum total. You're not really interested in immortality at all, are you?" he asked shrewdly. "Nope," Harry said with a smirk. "We trained you too well," Fury stated. "You pulled that manipulation off masterfully," he complimented. Harry got a hard look in his eyes. "I did not manipulate them. I may be leading them to something, but I'm simply offering them opportunities," he said emphatically. "I've just noticed that as they went into their studies, they stopped spending much time together. They started off so well and they respect each other, so I just want them to continue their friendship. Cooperating on a project would help build that friendship back up." It's not like they had stopped hanging out, but Harry had noted that they spent a lot less time together as the difficulty of their work increased. Once they got into such fine details that they could not convey everything they were working on easily, they had started drifting apart. "I'm trying to say you did well, not that you're a bad friend," Fury assured him. "God knows you've been a good friend to plenty of us. I was just thinking it's a shame you're not a full agent anymore. We could use more people like you on active duty." "I'm too busy for that. You've seen my reports on what Potter Innovations is doing. We've probably saved more lives than S.H.I.E.L.D. in the last year alone. Once Bruce figures out how to get the potions to the people that need them, we'll save even more than that," Harry said. "And that's why I don't call on you anymore these days, not unless there's absolutely no other option." Fury said. "That's about when Natasha made her way back to them. And I thank you for that. My fiancé is too valuable where he is. Better to keep him here where I can keep an eye on him," she said as Harry put his arm around her and smiled. "Harry, make some time to speak with me before I leave. Your latest gift to me has me concerned about some things. There's a likelihood of Pettigrew situation developing." Fury whispered to them before leaving to go speak to Bruce. Harry and Natasha understood what that meant, a spy or a mole in S.H.I.E.L.D. "I'll make sure we have the time," Harry promised. Then they went to his family, who were discussing something. He looked at Frigga when they suddenly went quiet at his approach. "What are you up to?" he asked. "I do not know to what you are referring." Frigga replied innocently. "Don't lie to me, I know that look. It's the same look Loki gets just before pulling a prank." Harry said with a knowing smile. "It seems it was foolish to discuss it here." Odin said with a chuckle. "How do you wish to handle it?" he asked Frigga. Frigga looked only slightly upset. "Will you never let us surprise you?" "Not if I can help it." Harry chuckled. Harry likes surprises, he just doesn't like being caught off guard. Natasha informed them. "So long as he knows when and where, he won't mind you planning something. You might as well tell him, Mother. He already knows that there will be a feast to celebrate their engagement." Thor said. Frigga looked torn but then relented. "We are discussing an engagement gift of sorts. I will not tell you more as we are still discussing the specifics," she said evasively. "Gifts always makes for a welcome surprise." Harry said with a smile. "Now I'll just have to think of something to bring for you." He finished with a thoughtful look. "You will do no such thing," Odin interrupted. "You will accept the gifts you receive and not bring any of your own," he said vehemently. "Speaking of gifts," Natasha said, "what is the ring doing? I can feel it connecting to me somehow but can't figure out what it's trying to do." Harry got a sheepish look on his face before replying. "About that, it's my magic." "I realize it's magical, Harry. I want to know what exactly it's doing." Natasha asked. "That's just it. I only gave it security enchantments to keep it from being taken from you. Besides that, I connected it to my magical core." Harry said. At her confused look, he said, "I wanted it to be able to offer you protection and get you from place to place. And make it so I can find you if you're ever taken, and many other things. Too many for one enchantment, so I decided to give it access to me. My magic is in constant connection with it. While you have that on you, you'll always be connected to me." He said. "How will it do those things if it's just connected to you?" Natasha asked, confused. Loki and Frigga had looked amused until Harry's explanation, then they looked shocked. Loki spoke up first. "You mean to say that you've found a way to give her permanent access to your stores of magical power?" he asked, incredulously. Harry shrugged. "Sure, how else could I share my life more completely?" he asked. "But it is your very essence." Loki said. "Your magic is your life. Nobody has ever done such a thing." "Are you sure that is wise?" Frigga asked with concern. "It is the only thing I could think of. Anything less would be an insult to how I feel about her." Harry explained. Odin had been considering this. It seemed his new son had taken a step not even he had considered possible. He looked closely at Harry and Natasha and was shocked at what he saw. Then he laughed. "You are indeed a master of enchantment. I see your magic even now trying to find a home in her. She has no magical core though, so it's still looking for a place to deposit some of your excess. That's what she is feeling," he said with a smile. "Really? I thought it might give her some protections and I'd probably be able to give her limited access to magic. I didn't know it would try to deposit my magic in her," Harry exclaimed. He then turned to her. "Is it hurting you?" he asked. Natasha shook her head. "No, it feels like it's looking for something much like your father has described it. It's more of a warm feeling running through me," she explained. "It's like it's alive. Magic is alive. That's how he can create things that live." Odin said, then looked at Harry. "I can see there is intent in the ring. I take it that you used Asgardian magic to forge the connection?" he asked. "Yes. It's the best kind of magic I know of. With this, I hoped a piece of me will always be there for her," Harry confirmed. "You have thusly created one of your most powerful magical artifacts to date," Odin said with a proud smile. "For the intent carries with it all of your magical power and potential. I would not be surprised if with time she actually develops magical powers much like your own, even without the ring." "What?" Harry exclaimed. He then turned to Natasha. "I didn't even know that. Is that something you would like, or should I rather enchant it with something else?" he asked, concerned. Natasha was shocked to say the least, but she pulled herself together to answer him with a small smile. "You mean something better than possibly being capable of being your equal one day?" she asked incredulously. "Of course not. This is the most amazing gift anyone could have ever given me," she said before jumping on Harry and giving him a kiss of pure passion and love. When she broke the kiss, she said, "And I will probably spend the rest of my life trying to pay you back for it." Then she leaned in and whispered so only he could hear, "Starting tonight." The tone and promise in her voice had Harry going through the rest of the night in a daze. When the party broke up, Harry had to promise to meet with Fury in the coming week. There was no chance he could give him his full attention just then. Fury wasn't happy but didn't complain either. Instead, he said they'd meet in the usual place Monday evening. Harry quickly agreed and opened a portal for Fury to go directly to his office. Fury was shocked but added it to the list of things to discuss on Monday. That evening, Harry didn't sleep a whole lot. There were far too many pepper-up potions in stock and a very grateful Natasha to please. Fortunately, he could conjure water, because on many occasions they almost had to stop to rehydrate. By the end of their evening, Harry had worked through half of the book's worth of tricks and Natasha fell into a coma-like sleep, a smile of pure pleasure firmly attached to her face. Harry wasn't far behind. The next day they were awoken by a knock on the bedroom door. "Who's there?" Harry asked as he slowly came to wakefulness. "It's me," Tony said from the other side. I want to get into the bar, it's past 12 already, he complained. They had been able to take care of themselves in their respective fully stocked kitchens, but the bar was the only place for drink on the island. Harry waved a hand and replied, bar's open, help yourself, but then your bartender for the next hour. Can do. Harry heard Tony's retreating voice as he hurriedly left. Can't we just go back to what we were doing last night? Harry heard from his side. The tone of her voice almost made him agree instantly. But then he remembered he had made a promise to the children. I'm sorry, love. I promised the children I'd take them to see the animals. Harry apologized. Are you sure? She asked as she slowly uncovered her bare assets to him. Which, I'm trying to be a good uncle here, Harry complained. He was sorely tempted to ask Logan to take them on the tour. Natasha pouted for a moment but then got a glimmer in her eye. Fine, but we've got an hour. We're taking a bath together, she said as she got up and walked to their bathroom. Swaying her hips as she did so, Harry was still in awe of her beautiful form and just sat there admiring her for a moment until she stopped and looked around at him. Are you coming? She asked with a saucy smile. An hour later, Harry exited the house with a smile on his face. The moment he was visible from the pool, a wet Cooper and Leela ran up to him. Uncle Harry, they chorused. Hey there, kiddos. How was your morning? Harry asked as he picked them both up and walked to the bar, where Laura and Clint were sitting with a butterbeer in their hands, watching the children's enthusiasm with smiles on their faces. Non-alcoholic drinks was something they had both come to appreciate. Where were you? Leela asked and then said excitedly. We saw the unicorns already, one of them even came to me and sniffed me. Auntie Nat and I were up late celebrating. Did you hear we're engaged? Harry asked in return. Mommy says that means you're going to get married and that you and Auntie Nat were kissing all night. Cooper said with a scowl. Kissing was so gross. I think it's cool, Leela said as she hugged her Uncle Harry. Uncle Harry will magic her and keep her safe all the time and then Mommy will stop worrying about her. You're right, I will keep her safe. Harry smiled at the girl. Sorry for being late. But we can still go see the creatures. I'd suggest you get out of your swimming clothes first though, he said as he set them both down. Let me just fix us some lunch to enjoy on the way. Knowing what was to follow, both of the kiddies got on stools and watched as Harry used his magic to make them some sandwiches. He made a show of it for the kids, so instead of things just flying into place quickly, some of the ingredients would grow arms and legs and play fight before dropping dead right in place on the bread. The kids were amazed as always and clapped and laughed when the sandwiches decided to start saying things like eat me in guttural voices or please don't eat me, I'm too young, in high-pitched voices, the pieces of bread moving like mouths. You know I hate it when you do that, Natasha said walking up behind him. Hey, why is she allowed behind the bar? Tony complained. He knew the rules would be bent or changed for her but felt the need to say it anyway. My fiancé is going to be allowed many things. Anything she wants, in fact. I don't think my magic will even stop her anymore, Harry said with a shrug. Perks of becoming a Potter, Tony grumbled while Natasha looked at him sideways. I never said I'll be taking your last name, she said, and I have no problem with that. I mean, I would like our family to have one name and I am partial to my own, but if you want we can hyphenate, Harry said easily. So you take my name as well? Natasha asked with a smirk. If that's what my lady wants, that's what my lady gets, Harry said with a flourish and a bow, smiling all the way. The kids loved the act and clapped along. They knew what he said was funny because Auntie Nat smiled and hugged him. I'll think about it, Natasha whispered to him. After what they just did, her proximity and the tone of her voice made him instantly smile. After lunch, Harry asked all the people around if they wanted to go on the tour. The people who had gone on the tour before all said that they could go on their own, all except for Loki and Darcy, of course. They had decided to fly along with them on their brooms. They loved the brooms. Harry was worried that Darcy would try to sneak hers out with her. Darcy and Loki had started disappearing at strange times and come back ruffled by the wind. Harry was wondering what was going on there. He could see that they were in some sort of mating dance, flirting and teasing. He didn't want to have that conversation though, so he just left it as is. Darcy had wit and wasn't afraid to slap and on one occasion taser Loki. Harry had loved seeing his expression afterward. He was going to go into the memory one day with a camera. He'd make it work for that picture. They followed the same routine as the previous tour except for the Sphinx, of whom Harry decided to ask a riddle of his own. When she couldn't answer the riddle correctly, Harry gave her the book he had gotten for her, which she strangely could read. She mentioned something about the language Allspeak, which the Aesir used allowed the feat. Harry decided he'd have to learn that particular skill if he could. Harry took them to see one of the newer attractions. Here we have a conclave of forest nymphs. In my homeworld we had something similar. They were called Vila and were air and fire elementals of a sort. They have a human form, much like the Vila did, and are all female. When they conceive, the offspring is always female. They have a certain skill called an allure which they use to attract mates. I would suggest caution and that you never venture here on your own, Harry was saying. So they usually go out looking for men? Laura asked. Yes and no. Some men are foolish enough to go looking for them. They can let the men go but usually want to protect their hiding spots, so they might decide to keep them. Good specimen could live out the rest of his days being used recreationally and passed around and never even care that he had a family somewhere in the world. Harry cautioned again. How are you filling their needs then? Clint asked. Loki just listened. He had come on the tour before but they hadn't stopped here. We don't, not yet anyway, they are reasonably new. In my world the Vila were thought of as a subspecies but allowed to exist only in their own enclaves. In this world on their planet, they were being stolen and sold into slavery, so we decided to offer them sanctuary. Here we may offer them the freedom they never had either here or in my home world. Harry said, you'll find that most of our creatures were brought here peacefully. Some who do not have the intelligence to understand were given safe havens that they cannot exit. The nymphs cannot exit their enclosure yet, but will be given the option once they have acclimated. We do not hold intelligent creatures against their will. They know they have the option to leave and go home, and someone comes to speak to them every day to find out if they are still happy. The only requirement for living here being the ability to coexist. Harry assured them. They had been walking through the entrance while Harry spoke. When they were inside, Harry told them to wait in the designated viewing area. It worked like a one-way mirror, except from the other side it looked like a rock wall while their view wasn't obstructed at all. They could see lush trees and a spring with little rivers running everywhere. Harry left them in the viewing area and entered the living area as he called it. Zira, are you there? He called. One of the trees seemed to groan as something started to move out of its trunk. At first 1 foot, and then the leg, and then the rest of the body of a reasonably attractive female had extricated herself from the trunk of her tree. She had brownish-red hair, with leaves of different colors woven into the braids like accessories. She wore a toga-like skirt that barely covered her assets, and she was smiling at Harry with her almond-colored eyes focused on him. Harry, you have come to visit, she exclaimed. Ladies, come greet our lord, she said over her shoulder. More nymphs started extricating themselves from their trees and hurried over to just behind Zira, where they stood and curtsied prettily. All of them were smiling and eyeing him hungrily. Have you come to taste our fruit? Zira asked, while a hint of her allure seeped through his mental shields. I've told you, Zira, I'm spoken for. Harry informed her calmly, and you still need to work on your allure. We cannot allow you into the general population if you cannot control yourselves. He warned, but with a smile on his face. Yes, you have told us that, but we do not mind, bring her along. The woman who holds your heart holds our allegiance. We would not take advantage of the Lord of the Land's hospitality and not offer him of our fruit. Zira said. There was a hint of something in her voice. Was it fear? Like I told you, this is an island paradise. Completely hidden from our world, very few know about it, so you are safe. And while I own it, I do not require rent or services. You may stay here as long as you want or go back to your world if that is your wish. I am not your jailer or your landlord. Harry reminded her. Please no, she said urgently. We do not wish to go back. We've lost so many of our sisters at the hands of monsters. Those you see here are the last of our people. We just wish to be of service to make ourselves useful. We do not want you to tire of us and be rid of us. She finished in a whisper. Do not fear. Ladies, came Natasha's voice from right behind Harry. She had been listening and heard the tone in the nymph's voice. Some of the nymphs looked up as if seeing her for the first time. My Harry is a kind man who comes from a world filled with magic and magical creatures. He's trying to create such a place on this island where magic can flourish. His wish is not for service or servitude. He believes that all sentient beings have the same rights. He wants to see you happy and thrive. That is all you should strive for, she said. Even if that were true, my lady, if we are not of use to our Lord, we will never feel secure. Please give us a task that we may fulfill. If we have something to occupy our time which makes us invaluable, our minds would be put to rest. Zira said. She was the designated leader by virtue of her age as the eldest at 275 years old. It was a shame, as nymphs could easily live thousands of years. They had almost been hunted to extinction. She had discussed things with the rest and found the only need they had was to stay and feel safe. For them to feel safe, they must make themselves indispensable to the Lord. Natasha thought about it for a second. I think I understand. Your lives have been difficult and you have not known the kindness that Harry offers. She started. You are tree nymphs, correct? Does that mean you have power over plants and plant life? She asked. That is correct. Once our trees are properly rooted in an area, we can exert a certain amount of influence on the plants in the land we live on. Zira confirmed. Natasha smiled. In that case, we might have a use for you. My future husband would have 3 uses for someone like you. She said. Firstly, the island we live on is home to many creatures, as you know. Some of them have specific dietary requirements. It would be useful to have someone besides Logan, the man who cares for the creatures, to keep an eye on the vegetation and ensure that there is enough food to go around. That would not be a problem. My sisters and I would gladly help with that. Zira confirmed quickly. Good, Natasha said. Secondly, we have greenhouses on the island where magical plants are being cultivated. Would you be able to encourage growth in such plants? Zira frowned. We may need to see about that, if they are magical. They may be resistant to our influence. You would have to show us where these greenhouses are, so that we may examine the plants. A greenhouse is a glass building that is made for plants to grow and avoid bad weather, among other things like climate and pest control. Harry supplied. And before we can take you to them, you need to exert some control on your allure because the greenhouses are close to where our people and friends are. He said, we will strive to control ourselves. Zira promised. We are expecting some guests in the next couple of days. Natasha offered. A group of adolescents are coming to visit, and if you can control yourselves around them, you should be able to come out and explore the island. She said while looking at Harry, who nodded. That's a good idea. If they can control themselves around the kids, then I can trust them with access to the rest of the island. Harry said before smiling. This is my future bride, Natasha. You've not really met yet, but you may follow her advice as if I gave it. We will never order you, only request. Unless it is a matter of urgency. Natasha put in. Harry nodded and continued, and you don't need to worry about saying no either. You have the same rights on this island as everyone else. If you feel someone is taking advantage, we are also who you come to, so we can put a stop to it. Thank you, my lord, Zira said. And the third thing, she asked. Call me Harry, we're going to be friends. I don't want you to bow to me either. On the island it's all about coexistence. As for the third thing, we need to test you for potions ingredients. Harry began. What? Zira asked as she took a step back. Sorry, I meant to say things like a lock of hair, a small branch from your tree, things like that. Harry explained. We've not killed or maimed anything so far and we don't intend to start. Natasha added. The nymphs were still not certain what to think, but at least didn't look like they were going to try and run. I'm really sorry for scaring you, Harry said. Zira pulled herself together and said, we'd still rather not leave. You've yet to give us a reason to mistrust you, but we've been hunted all our lives, so you'll have to excuse us our reaction. She said, there is power in the air here. It feeds us in a way we've never experienced. The soil is rich and the water is clean. We could not wish for a better home. We would still prefer real sunlight though. The sun you have in this cave is not insufficient, but it is less nourishing. I'll work on that, Harry promised. Then he suddenly had an idea. He looked up to the enchanted ceiling and concentrated on the enchantment. When he had locked onto it, he raised a hand and channeled a bit of intent into the existing enchantment. He really wanted the sun's light to be as real to the plant life as possible. After a moment he felt the intent imbue itself in the enchantment and settle. How is that? He asked. The nymphs all spread their arms as if they could measure the light with their skin. After a moment Zira smiled and said, that is much better. What did you do? I've been working on my usse magic and tried making the light better suited to plant life. Harry explained. Zira's smile faded. You have usse magic? Sure, Odin taught me himself. He's actually a very good teacher. Harry replied. Odin also adopted him, Natasha said with a smirk. Because of how generous Harry always is, he ended up helping them a lot and even saved the queen's life. Zira was shocked. You're a prince of Asgard. Then she went down on one knee, followed closely by the other nymphs. Your Highness, please forgive us, we did not know. Oh, come on, Harry said. Then he looked at Natasha. Why did you have to tell them that? Now they'll never stop the genuflections and niceties. I was hoping we'd become friends. He complained. Oh, stop whining, Natasha said. Then she turned to the nymphs. Please don't kneel before him. He's never liked things like that. Above all else, he just wants to be seen as Harry. She said, are you certain? We do not wish to offend the prince. She stopped as Harry gave her a hard look. We do not wish to offend Harry. She corrected herself. See, that wasn't so hard, Harry said as he walked up to the nymph and offered her a hand up, which she reluctantly took. Then, to help them calm down, Harry decided to do something nice for them. He stood back a bit and disapparated, only to return a moment later with 3 slabs of chocolate. Only the best would do for some of his desserts, so he always had some on hand. Here, he said, opening the first bar so that they could see how it was done, and broke a piece off for Zira, offering it to her. What is it? Zira asked. She was still shocked at his disappearance and reappearance. The look on Lady Natasha's face seemed to indicate it was something he did regularly. You've never heard of chocolate? Natasha asked with a smirk on her lips. Harry might just have done exactly what was necessary. It's a treat, you eat it, she said. Zira carefully took the piece from Harry and sniffed at it. Her eyes grew wide at the rich, sweet aroma and bit a tiny piece off. As she chewed, her eyes rolled back in her head and she groaned. It sounded like something that belonged behind closed doors. This is heavenly, she exclaimed as she opened her eyes and looked at the chocolate still in her hand. It's yours, Harry said, holding the rest out to her. Zira took the chocolate and thanked him. You truly are a generous man, Lord Harry. This is certainly the food of the gods. Wait until you taste ice cream. Harry smirked. He decided to let the title go for now. Hopefully with time the nymphs will treat him like a person. You are in a world with many different cultures. Once you have acclimated, we'll be introducing you to more and more kinds of food and technology. Natasha said, we want you happy if you're going to help us. We look forward to being of service, Zira said. Then she smirked and said to Natasha with a wink, our offer remains open. Please feel free to come visit whenever either of you want a taste of our fruit. Natasha smiled and replied, watch yourselves, ladies, I don't share. Her smile was only slightly predatory. We will convince you yet, Zira said. Then she turned around, not waiting for a reply, to go find the chocolate which had disappeared into the forest-like enclosure with the rest of the nymphs. Natasha listened to the moans of pleasure and turned to Harry. Why are they reacting that way to the chocolate? Is it enchanted? She asked. Harry chuckled. Actually, it's just normal chocolate. It's good but not enchanted, he said. The thing is, I heard a story once that described dryad reactions to sweets. If you didn't know it, dryads are a kind of tree spirit very much like these nymphs. Chances are that they are the same creature, just that they were named differently in this reality. Natasha smiled at him. You just wanted to hear their reactions. The fact that they will be begging you for sweets from now on will just be a bonus, she said. I was thinking of fruit-flavored hard candy, Harry said as he dug in a pocket and removed a sweet from there. I just so happen to have an enchantment in one of my pockets to always have one of these in there, he said with a smile. Natasha swiped the sweet and popped it into her mouth as they walked back to the stairs leading to the viewing area. This is good, Natasha said. The moment they entered the viewing area again, the children were on Harry asking for sweets. Harry just chuckled and used a bit of prestidigitation to make it look like he pulled a sweet from behind their ears. The children were always so happy to see a bit of personal magic like that. Harry wouldn't spoil it for them by explaining that it's just a trick and no magic was involved. The rest of the tour went off without a hitch. As they were flying back to the beach, Loki asked, "Why did you enter the nymph enclosure today? Last time you just pointed it out." They were still new and had asked for a couple of days without company to have their roots settle in. "I had to bring their trees after all," Harry explained. "Fair enough," Loki conceded. Then he smirked and said, "If I were you, I'd make certain I find them a viable consort or 12. "Why is that?" Natasha responded before Harry could. Loki's smile grew wider. "While I'm certain my brother was only trying to take care of the creatures of his realm, he might have forgotten that he was working with magical creatures. With the amount of his personal magic running through the island and suffusing all that lives here, the nymphs will be drawn to him like no other." At Natasha's frown, he continued, "I don't think Harry is the type of man who would cheat on his chosen, but if the nymphs aren't supplied with a virile caretaker, they may very well start trying to actively seduce him. Harry has very strong mental shields, but if a conclave of nymphs all focus their will on the task, I don't believe there is a man alive that could resist them." Natasha's frown deepened until Harry hugged her and said, "Loki is underestimating me again. I was already able to control myself when I went to meet with them the first time. So was Logan, actually. They will have more control here, and if my knowledge of Vila match up with these nymphs, the magic in the air might drive them to wanting to spend time around me, but it will also help them focus their own powers. Any children they have will also be more powerful than the last generation, now that they are actually living on magical land." Natasha seemed to relax into his arms for a moment, before looking at Harry and saying with a smile, "And there we have the solution. Logan is probably the only man that has the energy to keep up with an entire conclave of nymphs, probably also the only man alive that will live as long as they are capable of." Harry and Loki smirked before Harry replied, "Logan would make a fine father. I just worry for any suitors for his children. If my guess is right, he'll be one of those overprotective types." Harry put in, "Not to mention the nature of nymphs." Harry finished, "At first he'll be happy, but then once his daughters come of age, he'll never forgive you." Loki laughed. "That's why we'll explain the situation to him first, and Harry will put a spell on him to prevent unwanted procreation if he agrees." Natasha said, "All else fails, Harry could always make your mother's day and take you to the nymphs for a day or two. When they all become pregnant, I doubt she'll be complaining. We'll just have some trouble keeping her from the mothers of her future grandchildren." She whispered with a wicked smile at Loki, trying to keep part of their conversation from the kids. Not that she needed to worry, the kids were enjoying the flight too much to really pay attention. Loki had paled at the idea before smiling at Harry. "Your future wife will make a fine addition to the family. Once you start producing children, I will ensure to educate them on what you and she cannot teach them. We have traditions to uphold after all. My tradition of trickery and yours is the air of a marauder." Then he turned to Natasha, "And I suspect you're right. Mother might very well decide to spend some time here every day should that happen. Fortunately, I also know how to prevent certain unwanted circumstances. When we decide to have children, we'll let them decide what to do with their lives. We won't be setting them down a path they didn't choose for themselves," Harry warned. "If you feel the need to teach children your ways, why don't you just find a girl and make some children of your own?" Loki's face went blank before he said, "That is not something I wish to discuss." Then he flew off. Darcy, who had been listening with half an ear while having a conversation Laura and Clint from her broom, frowned before excusing herself and going after him. When they arrived back at the houses, Clint decided it would be best for routine if they went home for the night, so the kids would wake up in their own beds on Monday morning. After they left, Odin and Frigga said their farewells as well. "We will be in contact about your engagement party. Hopefully Heimdall has not told anyone yet. News like this would be all over Asgard in less than an hour," Frigga said as she hugged first Harry and then Natasha. "Do take care of him, dear. And don't be afraid to come and visit. I'm certain Harry wouldn't be so cruel as to keep me from getting to spend some time with my future daughter." "I'm sure you're right," Natasha smiled. "We'll have to make an appointment to take you shopping. Maybe we can even go look into some bridal stores." "What?" Harry exclaimed. "Don't worry, Harry, I'm not thinking of a short engagement." Natasha said, "I was just thinking Frigga and I could go shopping and I could show her the traditions we have here. That way she can tell me of the differences and we can be prepared." "Oh, that's okay then," Harry said with a sigh, relieved. "Of course we'll need transport to Paris and your credit card." Natasha finished. Harry smirked and said, "I'm sure something can be arranged." Then he turned to Odin, who grabbed him in a one-armed hug. "I'd say have a safe trip home, but you don't even need to worry about transit times anymore, do you?" He joked. "Indeed. You seem to have turned even the Bifrost into a long trip. Of course you'd need Heimdall's eyes to be able to do what he does." Odin smiled. "Be safe and come and visit. You know Frigga will be in contact for our weekly meal if it doesn't become more often now." "Of course we will," Natasha put in as she stepped in and hugged Odin. "And you are always welcome here. Did Harry give you a portkey to your house?" "He has," Odin responded. "We might come visit here, but we'll most likely call on you first. With Harry's permission, we might make this our official home away from Asgard." Odin then looked over at Frigga. "What say you, my queen? When Thor ascends the throne, could we spend more time here?" Frigga smiled and hugged Odin. "That is a wonderful idea. We'd have to prepare for it so you can spend your Odin sleep here as well. We could not hope for safer location for you after all." Odin nodded and looked thoughtful for a second. "Come to think of it, I'm not feeling the need to go into the Odin sleep. I'm almost certain it should be upon me in the next couple of weeks, but I'm not feeling the weariness that usually befalls me. Perhaps it is one of the side effects of spending time on the island," Harry offered. The air is saturated with magic and the water in the hot spring is enchanted to relieve stress and refresh you. Odin thought about it for a second before nodding. Perhaps it is so, but I will still need to enter the Odin sleep to replenish my energy. It would be wonderful to no longer need to do so one day, he said before looking at his eldest, where he was off in deep discussion with Jane. Thor's young still and won't need to start considering resting to gather his power for a couple thousand years yet, and with him on the throne I won't need to expend so much energy. Harry was shocked for a second. Are you sure? I mean, you're more than welcome, but you're used to having so much more with servants, guards, and feasts. My island is humble by comparison. Odin chuckled light-heartedly. You will find that when you experience the sameness of a situation for many years, a change of routine is always appreciated. Frigga agreed. I was not always a queen, you know. My aspects would be served much more easily here, where I can focus on being a wife and mother first and queen second. Perhaps one day soon I could be around to look after my grandchildren. Harry smiled at the idea that the king and queen of Asgard would prefer a more simple life after everything they had lived through. Natasha smiled and hugged him tightly, while Harry turned a portal into existence for them to go home. He was learning to do it with one hand but had not mastered it yet, so he used both hands for safety's sake. He smiled indulgently at Frigga. He would never deny her the chance to meet her grandchildren. He was just glad they didn't need to rush into that. Frigga and Odin left on their own, while Harry promised to send their sons along, once they found Loki and Thor was done with his conversation with Jane. Natasha seemed to have an idea what they were talking about, but Harry didn't press. He was more worried about where Loki and Darcy had disappeared off to. Eric was sitting with Tony, Pepper, Bruce, and Sif at the bar, none of which looked ready to leave. Tony had taken the once-off invitation and started entering the bar at will. Harry decided to let it go for now. Apparently Eric was interested in runes and how they worked. Tony was explaining while he drew on a piece of paper, indicating the lines and explaining the intent behind the parts of each rune. Everyone seemed to be following the conversation. Harry was impressed with Sif. He had thought her more the physical sort, not the cerebral. Looking around, he saw Thor trying to convince Jane of something while she stood with crossed arms. Whatever they were discussing, she seemed to be winning. I'm going to go look for Loki. Want to come with? Harry asked Natasha. Natasha agreed, and soon they were on their way on one of Harry's brooms. Natasha may have her own now, but she liked to fly with Harry. Harry concentrated for a moment on the energies he felt on the island and found the one he was looking for. He had discovered that, through his connection with the island, he could feel the different magics of the inhabitants. Through all of the magics he had invested on the island. He'd not be surprised if the island became aware at some point. As his was, he could pick up on Loki's magic, and he did not like where the feeling came from. He swore when he found Loki and sped off. He did not respond to Natasha's question, as she'd soon know. When they landed in front of the enclosure, Natasha's eyes got a hard cast to them. She nodded at him and activated her battle glove, which appeared on her hand with a touch to her bracelet. When they appeared in the viewing area, it was to find a frustrated-looking Loki and Darcy just outside the viewing area. It seemed like Loki was trying to find the exit without success. The nymphs of the enclosure were sitting by their trees calmly watching. Some even had smirks on their faces. How would you like to handle this? Natasha asked. At least it doesn't seem like he was trying to take advantage of them. But I still don't like the fact that someone could simply come here with them unable to leave. She scowled. We don't normally have to worry about that. With guests around and the obvious temptation that the nymphs pose, however, I think I'll have to come up with something. Harry said, even a good man can be tempted and turn from his own family. As for Loki, he should have known better, and I think I have an idea for how to sort him out. He'd have to enchant the entrance of the enclosure with what he was about to do, but it would at least protect the nymphs from unwanted attentions. Harry lifted his hand, and as subtly as he could started layering a charm on Loki. Loki was distracted trying to see the exit of the enclosure, and had no idea that anyone was just on the other side of the barrier watching him, so he didn't feel the magic taking effect until it was too late, and Harry had locked it into place. Damn it, Harry! Loki exclaimed, his voice several octaves higher than normal. We've been stuck in here for an hour and you decide now is a good time to trick me. Harry stepped into the enclosure and said, I don't know what you are talking about. When I noticed you were missing, I came immediately, and you've got only yourself to blame for your predicament. When Darcy came up to him and thanked him for coming for them, he just smiled at her and whispered the secret in her ear. She immediately perked up and walked into the hidden viewing area before returning with a smirk on her face, not wanting to miss the conversation to follow. We only came to visit your nymphs. We had no ill intent, and Darcy wanted to see if the allure would work on her. Loki explained, I don't care for your reasoning. Harry said harshly, Zira and her people are my guests and under my protection. You should have discussed coming to visit them with me first. Harry had a hard look in his eye, something Loki had hoped to never see directed at him again. Zira approached and said, I'm sorry, my lord, but Prince Loki treated us with respect. They were only here for a couple of minutes before they noticed they were stuck here. You have nothing to apologize for, Zira. Harry said, his features softening before he turned back to his brother. I am just disappointed in my brother. He knows how much I care for all those living on my island and should have known better. If you were unable to control your allure, or he was a lesser man with less control, he could have done things and damaged a lot of relationships in the process, including his own burgeoning one. Loki looked shocked for a second. He had not considered that. Harry had told everyone that every sentient life form on the island was considered equal. Yet he had not considered the consequences of what might have happened should the very magical populace of the island affect the guests or vice versa. He could potentially have cost Harry some of his friends or allies. He should have known that Harry protected his friendships jealously. Loki took a step back from Harry before bowing deeply. I apologize for my conduct. It is as you say, I should have known better and will strive to respect your authority, especially here where your people live. This time it was Harry's turn to be shocked. Loki had never acted like this. He realized that Loki must know some of his drive to protect his people, some of his experiences with loss, but had never seen him show so much respect or apologizing so honestly. Harry could tell he was sincere too, so he pulled himself together and said, "Thank you for understanding. Zira and her people are new to the island, but they have all the rights that we have. We must protect each other from unwanted influence. I was just worried. I too apologize for my harsh reaction," Harry said with a smaller bow to Loki. Then he turned to Zira. "You are also allowed any friends that you want, but would you mind if we control your introduction to people just until you know how things work here?" Zira nodded, finding she liked the way Harry considered their feelings and rights. He didn't seem to be lying when he promised them protection and equality. He had just yelled at his own brother in their defense, no less. None of the nymphs said anything, but their communal respect for him grew exponentially. Loki nodded and then smiled before asking, "Any chance you can remove the charm you have on me? I seem to find it impossible to dispel by my normal means." Harry smirked then. "I'm sorry, brother dear, the charm on you has been locked in place for the next month. I'm not certain I could remove it," Harry said while trying to control his smile. "You could always ask our father to attempt removing it." Loki looked at him open-mouthed before coming to his senses. He had almost admitted being out-tricked. "You are aware that you have inconvenienced not only me, right?" he said with an upturned eyebrow, nodding his head to Darcy. Darcy was still looking at Loki with a certain look of interest in her eyes. "I don't know," she said. "You make a good-looking girl. Maybe we could explore this. You could learn some tricks no man ever knew." Then she got a gleam in her eye. "Or Harry could do the same for me. I've always wanted to know what being on the giving side would be like." Harry started to respond affirmatively, but Loki interrupted him. "Let's discuss that later," he said to Darcy before moving to where he knew the exit must be. "Anyone care to tell me how to get out of this room?" As he asked it, he layered an illusion on himself to hide the fact that he was now a reasonably well-endowed woman. Darcy walked up behind Loki and ruined the illusion by cupping her breasts. "Nice," she said. "These are well done. Doesn't feel fake at all." "That's because they're not," Harry said. "The spell I used actually changes people into what they would be if they were the opposite sex. It doesn't always work so well as you can imagine, since not everybody looks good as the opposite sex. I'd still like to try it, but only if I don't have to stay in the shape for a month," Darcy said. "I could cast it on you for a shorter period of time, but once a time limit is set, it can't be undone." Harry lied easily. He wasn't going to tell Loki he could undo it whenever he wants to after all. Where would be the fun in that? "So you chose to lock me in this form for a month," Loki objected. "Look on the bright side," Harry said. "I could have put a nullification field up that would make it impossible for you to make any illusions for the duration. Still might." When Loki's face blanked, he knew he had won that round. So he smirked and led him out of the enclosure after saying goodbye to the nymphs. Before they left, Harry took a couple of minutes to add a spell to the enclosure to make any uninvited male that enters it into a female for a month. That should be interesting if the kids decide to play around where they don't belong. He made doubly sure to exclude Logan from the magic of this particular enchantment. He did not want to meet the woman that he might become. They were soon back at the bar. When they landed, Harry surreptitiously dispelled Loki's glamour, much to Harry's friends' enjoyment. Thor was not very talkative, and as soon as Harry was settled and had a soda in hand, he was approached by Jane. "Hey Harry, listen, I'm thinking it's time for us to go," she said. "Speak for yourself," Darcy put in. "I'm staying as long as I'm allowed." "Have you found someone who will pay your rent and student loans?" Jane asked sarcastically. "She may have," Loki put in. He wanted to spend more time with this girl. She was quite refreshing to be around, and she'd never be allowed on Asgard, so making her comfortable on the island where he could see himself visiting might be useful. "Hold on there, lover boy, or at that lover girl?" Darcy asked. "You knew what this was going in. I'm nobody's kept woman. I like my independence, thank you very much." Loki smirked. "Exactly. If I were to employ you in your role as a practitioner of the political sciences, would that not be considered gainful employment?" Darcy had a look of consideration on her face before she replied, "Sorry Loki, I like my job with Jane way too much." When Loki's face fell, she said, "But don't worry, I'll come back as often as your brother allows. Maybe weekends," she asked, looking at Harry. "We'll have to discuss it," Natasha said for him. "This island isn't just a weekend getaway and sanctuary. We have a business running from here as well. Surely we can arrange for Mira for her at least, and I'm certain I could keep her safe should she decide to come visit." Loki asked. "We'll have to discuss it," Harry said finally. "I'm sure you ladies will see each other again." He finished with a smirk. Loki scowled at him but let it go. "It is your island," was all he said. "How about this next week?" Darcy asked. "I could help with the tours and chaperoning the kids." That was actually a good idea, Harry thought. Darcy was a likable sort and he could see her getting along with the kids. Her no-nonsense attitude would probably earn her some respect with the kids too. "I actually hadn't thought of that," he said, turning to Natasha. "What do you think?" Natasha looked at Darcy for a moment before asking, "What about your work with Jane?" I thought that was your reason for not taking Loki's offer. They'll be studying the results from their tests on the convergence for months. I'll have very little to contribute with that. It's actually one of the best parts of the job. I've got a lot of downtime while they do their research. Darcy said, besides, having worked for the man who tried to take over the world does not look good on your CV. She shrugged. Will it always come back to that? Loki whined. Yes, came the unanimous response from everyone in earshot. Even Jarvis had added his own voice before saying, we do have plans to set up an Erder with a PMG in Asgard. Perhaps Prince Loki can stay in touch with Miss Darcy that way. Hold on, Bruce interjected. You're setting up a cellular and data connection in Asgard. Aren't you worried about the things they might see on the internet? Are you worried about porn? Tony asked with a smirk. Bruce nodded. Don't worry. All the data running through our Erder system is running through a cluster of servers that filters out things that could be considered unwholesome. It was actually necessary because some countries have laws against some things and we have to abide by at least them so that the governments don't have reason to take or destroy the hardware. He explained. Why haven't I heard about this? Harry asked. Tony hadn't even told him. It's not something you have to worry about. I take care of small details all the time. I don't discuss every little thing I do after all. Tony shrugged. Did you want to know about the cup holder I intend on putting in the flying car you and I will make one day? I suppose you have a point. Harry conceded. Besides, this is my field. I do the extra things I can, much like you do on this island. I don't know everything about this place and I don't need to because I know you have that covered. Tony continued. We make suggestions and come up with solutions together, while we each focus on our own parts of the whole. He finished. I said I get it. Harry smiled. Then he turned to Darcy. As for your idea, you do realize that you will have to sign an employment contract even if it is a short-term one. What's the difference between that one and the one I've signed already? Darcy asked. We've not told you everything we do. Once you've signed the employment contract, you will be allowed to know more about what we do. It has the added benefit of allowing you access to certain things which can only be found at Potter Innovations at this stage. Harry explained. Who knows, once you know more you might end up deciding to stay part of the team. Wow, you're just throwing the carrots at her. Tony said. What happened to the stick? He asked with a smile. She's a friend. The stick is reserved for people we've not had the time to get to know. Harry said simply, I think you enjoy the way she keeps putting Loki in his place. Natasha offered. Harry smirked. I will neither confirm nor deny that statement. He then turned to Jane. When your research is done, please contact me. Tony and I have plans to move into space exploration at some point if you're interested. We could use one of the world's leading astrophysicists and the world's foremost astronomer. As he said this, he turned a portal into being to Jane's apartment. Imagine where we could go. Jane instantly understood. I think I might like that, thank you. Then she stepped through the portal. Eric walked up to Harry and shook his hand. Thank you very much for this week away. It was good to experience the other side of magic. I don't think I've felt quite this alive and aware since New York. Then he frowned. You didn't do anything, did you? He asked Harry. I may have cast a couple of general healing and cleansing spells in your direction at some point. Your friends were worried about your behavior of late. Harry said, do you feel the need to take off your pants so that you can think, now that you mention it? Eric said as he cocked his head to the side, no, I don't. Harry smiled. Well, let me know if that should change. We can always arrange a visit either here or where you are. Eric smiled back before nodding and walking through the portal. When Darcy didn't look like she was going to move, Harry closed the portal. Harry locked eyes with Thor, and when he saw the look on his face, he turned to Natasha. Before he could say anything, Natasha said, go. He needs to talk, and he probably won't want extra company. Harry thanked her and walked off, indicating for Thor and Loki to follow him. As they walked away, 3 bottles came flying over from the bar, and Harry shrunk and pocketed them. Tony looked up at that. You know, we should really consider the uses of shrinking things. I'm almost certain there's a market for it. Imagine having a supercomputer in your pocket no matter where you go. This statement led to a whole other conversation about the uses and complications of magic in everyday life. This conversation was one often heard in the company of the Avengers these days, and served as the sounding board for future ideas that might be implemented by Potter Innovations. Jarvis took notes to send to Harry later, as he often did. Jarvis really liked Harry and the fact that he had supported Jarvis with his own sentience. Right from the beginning. Didn't hurt. Halfway through the chat, both of the brothers had become melancholy and started bemoaning their lots in life. Harry had quickly put an end to it by telling them some of his own past and telling them how the bad experiences taught him valuable lessons and skills. Hate the Dursleys as he might, he always had a story of how his life was worse to mute other people's complaints. He had almost thanked them in his head on a number of occasions. Almost. Thor had been bemoaning losing the love of his life. Her offer of friendship was the cherry on top. Harry let Thor speak and watched him shed a couple of tears. When he was out of steam, he didn't feel better, but he was on the way. Next, Harry broached the subject of children with Loki. At first, Loki refused to talk about it, so Harry started taunting him, to get his ire up until he finally lost it and exclaimed, I don't want my monstrous children infecting the world, okay. Loki seemed to crumple in on himself after the statement. I always thought having children would mend some of the rift with our father, but when I found out about my origins, I realized my children would be monsters like I was. This explains so much. Loki wanted to fix his relationship with Odin and always held out hope that there was a solution. When he found out he was adopted, it pushed him in the other direction, seeing it as a complete rejection, his last hope dashed. Thor vehemently proclaimed that any nieces and nephews he got would be family, and anyone that called them monsters would have to answer to him. Thor was an honest person, and it seemed that Loki's problem was changing his priorities somewhat. He was still in pain, but he could handle that in his own time. His brother took precedence. After that, Harry had gotten them proper drunk while telling Loki that any children he had would have the royal blood, and probably have their father or mother's build, so he didn't need to worry about monsters. Loki was relieved and started relaxing. That's when the alcohol started kicking in and he was soon knocked out. It was a couple of hours later that the drunk brothers walked back into the bar area. Some of the people had decided to go to bed, but Tony and Natasha were still at the bar. While Darcy relaxed in the hot spring with her back to them, she may have decided to bathe in the nude. Thor was carrying a drunkenly passed-out Loki, while Harry walked behind them. He had refused to use a sobering charm on either of them, saying that they both deserved it for their stupidity. They all had a nightcap and went to bed. Harry was excited. The Institute's children were arriving the next day. Monday morning arrived and Harry sent Thor and Loki back to Asgard right after breakfast. Loki had protested, but Harry refused to listen and sent him through the portal with a push of his magic. Loki was not happy, but was refused his payback because the portal had closed while he was picking himself up. Harry was looking forward to hearing about the reaction to Loki being trapped as a woman. Tony and Pepper had left earlier in the morning. Apparently there was a lot of work to do. Bruce left with them, saying that he needed to focus on his work as well. He was hoping to finish his own mastery in the next month or two, and apparently he was going to start working on a Felix Felicis potion. If he was successful, he'd literally be the first person on this planet to brew liquid luck. Next he went looking for Logan. It was simple enough for him to find him. He let his magic out and apparated directly to where he sensed the man. He tended to fly around the island instead of apparating, but felt like getting his day started quickly. He'd been on vacation too long. He was itching to get started. Natasha just smiled at him, having been brought along by her ring. Apparently, she no longer needed to be in contact with him for some things. Spotting Logan, Harry greeted him. "Good morning, Logan. How are things going this morning?" Logan looked up from where he was shoveling some dragon manure into a floating crate. Harry had set it up for him. Logan scooped the last shovelful into the crate and put the shovel into a holder for it on the side. Once the shovel was in place, the crate took off and started floating to a greenhouse where Logan had gone to fetch it. There it would go into the greenhouse, to a storage shed which kept everything in stasis. That kept the smell down and the manure ready. Finally Logan replied, "Fine, you ready to go get the kids?" Harry smiled excitedly. "Oh, I'm ready. We've even got a couple of surprises ready for them. Were you able to set up everything at the campsite?" Logan smirked. "Everything is ready on my side," he said. Harry smirked and said, "Let's go then. You want to clean up first." Logan looked down at himself and realized he could do with a wash. He looked up at Harry, and before he could ask, he felt the magic running over him and found himself to be completely clean. Even his clothes seemed freshly washed. "Thanks," was all he said before he walked up to Harry and placed a hand on his shoulder. Natasha did likewise. She didn't need to, of course, but that didn't matter, did it? They soon found themselves on the porch of the Institute, and Logan walked in uninvited, as was his way. Harry and Natasha followed him in and found the entrance hall overflowing with people. Some were sitting and chatting while others waited in silence. Harry had never seen so many people at the Institute at one time. Apparently word had gotten around the X-Men about where the kids were going. Most of them had met Harry when he was at the Institute. Some of them even had a couple of items he had made. Harry looked at the group for a second before he laughed. Okay. I guess I should have expected this. Professor, is everybody ready?" Professor Xavier moved to Harry and shook his hand. "Good morning, Harry. I believe we are waiting for a couple more people." "Who?" Harry asked. "A few late risers and one guest which I would like for you to speak with before we leave." Xavier said he was not making eye contact. "What did you do?" Harry asked dangerously while he looked at Xavier through narrowed eyes. Before Xavier could reply, Harry heard the sound of Logan's claws coming out. He turned around to see Logan holding an old man against the wall with his claws millimeters from his throat. "What have you done, Chuck?" Logan asked over his shoulder, not taking his eyes off the man. "The fact that he's here at all should tell you something." Xavier said, "Yes, that you let him in on the secret. How are you going to keep the children safe if you cannot keep him away?" Logan growled. "He does not know the secret. He contacted me via other means. We picked him up and he signed a contract stating that he will keep our secrets or lose the memories." Xavier said. He turned to Harry. "Thanks for leaving one of those with us. It is good to know we can reach out like this." Harry did not know this person, but he recognized the face. Eric Laneshare, real name Max Eisenhart, otherwise known as Magneto. He saw the shock on the man's face as he looked between Harry and Logan. "Yes, that's right. I know a lot about you and your power no longer affects Logan. Can't have my friends vulnerable to a sociopath." The old man looked him in the eye then. "Call me Eric. Could you call off the ruffian?" "Logan, if you would, I've got him." Harry said. Logan let him go, but Eric was still pinned to the wall. As Harry stepped up to him, Eric was lifted ever so slightly into the air. His arms and legs straightened and stuck to the side of his body. Logan is not a ruffian. That would indicate that he is a violent criminal. He might be a bit wild and overprotective, but he's never been a criminal, not really. "You, on the other hand," Natasha put in as she stepped out from behind Harry, "are wanted in many different countries for, among other crimes, attempted extermination of the human race." As she said this, she pulled out a gun and pointed it right at his head. "You are wanted dead or alive, preferably dead." Harry smirked and let the old man go. He landed on his feet and lifted a hand, trying to remove the gun from Natasha's hand. I'm afraid I've had to temporarily bind your power, Harry said. He had actually just layered a charm on him to stop magnetic waves from leaving his body. Knowing how his power worked was very useful to prepare. Harry had many plans for other would-be evil masterminds. I'd warn you against attempting to hurt my fiancé as it would be detrimental to your health. At this, Natasha cocked the gun, as if daring the man to try. Eric lifted both his hands in the universal sign of giving up and being unarmed. I would not hurt anyone here, not now when I need your help. I'm assuming you are the reason I could not remember the location of the mansion, he asked Harry. Harry nodded and asked, what do you want? It wasn't unfriendly per se, but it wasn't an open invitation of friendship either. Could we perhaps discuss this where there isn't a whole generation of mutants listening to our conversation? Eric asked. Harry considered it and looked at Xavier. You are in control, he asked. I am not in his mind. He said, we used to be comrades. I try to respect his privacy, especially since he came here willingly and signed the contract. Harry lifted an eyebrow. So you indiscriminately enter everybody else's minds without invitation. But one of the worst criminals on the planet you respect, your priorities are skewed. Eric actually chuckled. You are not wrong, he said to Harry. He should keep his mind out of his followers' minds and actively attack his enemies, but he has a moral standpoint that I could never understand. I do not enter people's minds indiscriminately, Xavier finally said. I will speak to people in their minds, sometimes listen to surface thoughts, but only in dire situations will I enter someone's mind and go through their private memories. He did not look happy, but he could not refute that he had once attempted to enter Harry's mind without permission. Harry lifted an eyebrow. He had not known that. It sounded very similar to his own standpoint. I can at least say that I understand that point of view. I feel the same about entering people's minds without permission at least. Perhaps your power is different enough that you can separate the private parts of the mind from the surface, but for me, everything is private, he said. Okay, let's continue as planned, he said, and then turned to Eric. But if you step 1 foot out of line, I'll make sure you never have access to your powers again, one way or another, he said as he nodded to Natasha, who hesitated only for a moment before stowing her gun. She activated her bow glove in full view just in case. The message was clearly received. The kids had been enjoying the show, especially the older ones who had seen Magneto in action in the past. Seeing him helpless against one of their strongest protectors put a couple of the younger ones at ease as well. Harry stepped back and turned a portal into being, right next to the front door. It led to the beach right by the houses. Okay kiddos, go on through with Wolverine. He knows where you need to go and is in charge of the camping trip. Your teachers will follow when we have finished our business with the guest. Logan walked to the portal and started letting the kids go through. We've got everything you need on location. Unless you have special needs, you take only a change of clothing, swimming gear, and your necessities. Logan wasn't stopping them from taking anything else but didn't tell them about the hike he had planned before they got to the campsite. Those who packed too heavily would regret it. Once the kids were through, Harry turned to Xavier and held out his hand. Contract, he said, no matter what Xavier said. Harry would not let this man onto his island without checking that the information was secure. Xavier must have expected it because he produced the contract and handed it over. Harry took it and looked at it. Then he scanned it to ensure the magic was correct and nothing was tampered with. Everything seemed in order. Okay, go on through, he said as he pointed at the portal and made the contract disappear to his own secure storage. The X-Men went through, followed by Eric and then Harry. When Harry stepped through, it was to see all the kids standing in front of Logan. He was giving a speech on the rules of the island. Harry didn't know what those rules were, but he trusted Logan to handle it. He led the professor and guests to the bar area, where he spelled the professor's wheelchair to lift to the appropriate height. Harry poured a couple of sodas for the guests and even offered Eric a butterbeer, who looked at it strangely. Why are you being so accepting suddenly? Simply because I signed a contract. Eric scoffed. Harry smirked and carried on pouring drinks for the many adult guests. He was currently pouring a large Coke for Hank McCoy or Beast. Harry had always liked him quite a bit. The man was a well-spoken gentleman with a sharp mind, and the fact that he looked like a monster before Harry outfitted him with an illusion-inducing wristband made it all the more impressive. He was privately hoping to introduce him to Bruce. Oh, the things those two would be capable of together. The thought excited him tremendously. Instead, Natasha answered Eric. She was standing in the bar area with Harry. That was no mere contract, that was magically binding. She looked at Xavier. You didn't tell him. Xavier smiled, contentedly drinking his cup of tea. Harry always made the best. I gave my word to keep Harry's secrets. I would not allow this information into the wrong hands. Not after everything Harry has done for mutant kind. Harry spoke up at this. I've not done that much. I simply look out for the kids. Xavier shook his head and looked at Natasha. Is he always like that, playing down his own achievements? Natasha asked. When Xavier nodded, she said, yes, he doesn't want credit for doing what he believes to be right, what he believes any good person would do, given the opportunity. Xavier rolled his eyes. He does know that he's wrong, right? No, but I prefer him optimistic. Natasha shrugged as she stepped to him and hugged him from the side as he continued pouring drinks. We all do, Aurora said from the other side of the bar, sipping on a virgin margarita. And may I offer you congratulations, I see that you have acquired new jewelry. She smiled warmly as she said this, indicating the engagement ring. You may, Harry said as he returned the hug. It only happened this past weekend. He kissed his girl before he continued pouring drinks. Scott took a tall glass of beer from the tap. There were suddenly many voices congratulating them. They thanked everyone graciously, and then Harry turned to Marie. "What can I get you?" Marie had not expected to be asked. While she was no longer a student, she had been worried she would be excluded from the trip. She was still staying at the institute after all. She was hoping to become an instructor. But she was too young for alcohol just yet. "Anything is fine," she said. Harry looked at her and thought he understood her conundrum. Surrounded by elders she respected and not wanting the attention on herself, she wouldn't be comfortable just yet, especially coming from America where the drinking age is 21. He smirked and said about making her an appletini. When he placed the finished product in front of her, she seemed shocked. Harry waved a hand and made it so nobody but Marie, Natasha, and himself could hear. "I hear you are turning 19 this year. In England, the drinking age is 18. On my island, I make the rules. That first one is alcoholic. Any other ones I make for you will be non-alcoholic, but nobody needs to know that, right?" he said with a wink before canceling the privacy spell and continuing. Marie smiled and took the drink in hand before taking a sip and sighing. It was one of the most delicious things she had ever tasted. Harry was good at bartending. Maybe he could teach her a thing or two. It was too bad he had Natasha already. Her thoughts started wondering. "Are you sure that's wise?" Xavier asked. "She is underage. In America, maybe." Harry scoffed. "Where are we?" Eric asked. He had not missed the exchange and the fact that Harry clearly spoke, but he couldn't make out his words. "And what does a magical contract do?" "Exactly what it said." Xavier said. "You did read it after all. That part about losing the memories. I thought that was you taking a more vested interest in protecting your students." Eric said. "You mean to say that the contract itself has made it so that if I try to tell anyone about your school being hidden or any of Mr. Potter's secrets, the memories will simply vanish by magic?" he asked, astonished. Oh, what he could do with someone with these gifts. "Exactly," Xavier said, "and stop planning to use this somehow." He warned. "Are you playing up here again?" Eric asked, putting a finger to his temple. "No, I simply know you well, old friend." Xavier smiled serenely. He was almost certain that Eric had other plans and thought that blocking his mind with his helmet would protect his memories once he left the institute. "Okay, now that everyone has something to drink and we've all confirmed that nothing is getting out after we turn Eric over to S.H.I.E.L.D., how about we start discussing why you decided to bring him to me?" Harry said, standing back and taking a sip of his own drink. Eric looked shocked while Xavier looked sheepish. "I'm afraid you can't do that, Harry. I gave him my word that he would be safe as long as he signed the contract and didn't harm anyone. He doesn't even know where the institute is," he said pleadingly, "and he will be safe in solitary confinement." Natasha put in. She remembered the time when it felt like her head was going to explode because of this man's actions. She had later heard it was another man's plot. But Magneto had decided to turn it around on all non-enhanced. Fortunately, the public never found out the source. If that information somehow got leaked, "I agree with Natasha," Harry put in. A couple of the X-Men were nodding along. It's not like Eric could do anything right now. Harry had him completely under control. "I gave him my word, Harry. I would not do that if it wasn't important." Xavier said. Harry looked conflicted. He really wanted to help the mutants, but he also really wanted to stop this monster. Maybe he could have it both ways. "You have my attention. Tell me how and why I should help you." Eric looked at the seemingly young man. He didn't look a day over 25, but his eyes were old. He'd seen eyes like those before. This was not a man he should play with. "Best just to get straight to the point. I've recently become aware of your ability to hide locations from both being found and common knowledge. I'd like to set up an island where mutants will be safe from persecution. I'm aware of an island off the eastern coast of Africa where mutants have started to gather. Would you be willing to hide it so only mutants can find it?" Harry thought about it. It could be possible, depending on the size of the island. There were too many problems with the idea, however. "I'm sorry, but no." Eric was expecting it, so continued. "Don't you see, as long as mutants exist, they will be persecuted. Because they are different, we must do something to protect them, to protect us." Harry looked him straight in the eye and asked, "And what happens when you have this land? Do you start your own educational systems and indoctrinate your message of fear? Where do you get resources that you can't grow on the island? What about when someone wants to leave your kingdom? Do you lock them up or kill them, or do you rule by iron fist? Do you attack your neighbors from your hidden location and cause war? After all, who is more entitled to rule this world than those with power?" Harry was starting to see his own past in front of his eyes as his power started to manifest. "Harry, calm down, he's not Tom," Natasha said from his side where she had taken his hand. She had started to feel his power roiling via the ring. "No, he's not, but he's exactly like him. He'd destroy everyone he feels doesn't conform to his idea of purity. Just like Voldemort, just like Grindelwald." "Who is he referring to?" Eric asked. "The magical world's Hitler." Natasha said she wasn't even looking at the guests, so she didn't see Eric's reaction to Harry's words. She didn't need to, she knew his past. She was more concerned with the fact that Harry's eyes were locked into the distance. He wasn't seeing her anymore. She pressed herself against him and kissed him. A minute later he seemed to come back to himself. "Sorry about that, love." Harry apologized. "I do get lost in the past. Odin says the memories will fade with time. I'm starting to hope he's right." He hugged her tight and held her for a moment before letting her go. He turned to the guests. "Sorry about that. I have a difficult past and sometimes I need to take a moment to deal with it." Harry trailed off. He just had an idea. Turned to Xavier. "Do you still hold out hope that there is some good in this man?" Xavier knew this was a loaded question but answered honestly. "I once believed that he would help save the world. He's had a difficult past as well and I do still hope for him, yes." Fine, Harry said. He looked at Natasha. I am going to need a couple of hours alone with these two idiots. I'm giving them a full forced upload. Can you handle the other guests? Natasha looked at him concerned. I can, but are you sure? Xavier doesn't have a contract. Harry nodded. You're right, I'll do that first. It's either that or I leave him here and I have to repeat the process again later. Natasha nodded. I'll take care of them, she promised. Harry hugged her one last time before he stepped out of the bar and around the counter. He walked up to the men in question, who were both nervous about the last couple of statements. What's happening, and where are you taking us? Did nothing for them as Harry grabbed them and apparated them to the basement of Avengers HQ. He summoned a contract and held it in front of Charles, letting it float there with a pen. Sign. Harry said, I assure you, Harry, your secrets are safe with me. Xavier said, that's not the issue. I'm going to share something with Eric here. If you try to read his mind and he thinks about it, you'll erase his memory accidentally and I'll have to repeat the process. Since you need to be under contract to protect his memories, you need to sign. Harry said Xavier didn't like it, but he could at least see the logic. He took the pen and paper and signed the contract. Harry made them disappear and started pacing in front of a blank wall. While he paced, he summoned his pensive. As he passed the same spot a third time, a red door appeared in the wall. Harry opened the door and levitated Xavier in. He looked at Eric, but he walked in on his own, not wanting the strange man to levitate him in as well. Once inside, Eric saw that the room was completely white, if he could call it a room. There were no doors and no windows. There didn't even seem to be a source of light or borders or corners. Where is this? He turned around and found the red door was missing. And how do we leave? You are in the room of requirement. It can become whatever I want. I wanted a safe space with no soul around but us and no possible way to be overheard. This is what it came up with. Harry explained. Xavier had heard of the room but was thus far unimpressed. Why not a familiar place or space or something? Too many distractions. Harry explained. There are no distractions here except for this. As he said it, he placed the bowl on a stand which appeared in front of them. He sat down on a chair, which hadn't been there before, and indicated to another for Eric. I'm not going through this again. I've seen the end of the world at the hands of a madman once already. I will show you some memories and you will understand. Simple. Without waiting for an agreement, Harry put a finger to his head. He didn't want to waste time. The horrors that he had just been seeing were exactly what they needed to see. He started putting more and more memories into the bowl, sequencing them one after the other. When he was done, a good 10 minutes had passed. This would take a whole couple of hours. He thought, okay, so you saw me enter a whole bunch of memories into the pensive. You will now watch them by placing a finger in the pensive. Harry instructed. No, Eric said. He had seen the emotions crossing the man's face. He was certain that he didn't want to see those memories if that's what the device did. He also still wasn't happy being compared to the man who tried to cleanse the world of his people, the man who killed his family. You are acting quite irrationally. Harry, I think I can imagine what this bowl is supposed to do, but are you sure it is safe in your current frame of mind? Xavier asked. Harry answered Xavier first. I'm just tired, Charles. This device will merely show you memories. You won't be part of them. They can't hurt you. He looked at him pleadingly. Please, Charles, I need you both to understand. If you do this, I'll consider giving Eric what he wants. He'll still need supervision, but I'll consider it. Charles and Eric looked at each other before they reached out to the bowl. Wait, Harry said. Make sure you are in a comfortable position. He moved Eric's chair so that he wasn't leaning forward to put his finger in the bowl. We will be in these memories for a couple of hours. We don't want to come back to cramping bodies. Finally, they put their fingers in the bowl, followed by Harry. It was a bit more than 4 hours later that they were ejected back into their own bodies. Nobody said anything. Harry had gone with them to give commentary. He did not like reliving most of that, seeing his friends again and then watching them die. He didn't have a choice. He needed to see Eric's response to some of that. He was relieved to see the man lose all color at certain points Harry knew he would compare with himself and his own past deeds. Eric was the first to speak. I see why you would rather not create an invisible nation. There are so many opportunities to cause mayhem from the shadows. Any one government sees that as another nation attacking and we have another missile crisis on our hands. He looked at Harry then, and I am so sorry for all your losses. I see now why you see me as such a monster. I do compare quite well with your own. Charles was shocked to hear the admission. Had Harry finally gotten through to the man? I am sorry as well. I didn't know. I couldn't have, he said sadly. Harry looked up at them. Here's the thing. I have been told by someone in the know that there is a high likelihood that something similar might happen here. I was sent here to help. You saw what happened with the prophecy. I defeated my enemy, but the world still burned. I'll need help. Eric looked at him and sighed. And you want me to promise my support when the time comes? I want you to not be my enemy first, Harry said. Eric scoffed. Like there's a way I can stand against you anyway. He then looked him straight in the eye. I really do want to protect my people. I can see that, Harry said. That's the only reason I'm giving you one chance. I don't have the right to give you the opportunity as you are a criminal, but I will give you the chance so long as Charles here has oversight. When Charles tried to protest, Harry interrupted him. You have no choice in the matter. You stood up for him. You get to keep an eye on him. Eric looked between them and sighed. As long as we can finally live freely without fear, I have no problem with that. Harry shook his head. You do realize you're not doing that, right? You're basically doing exactly what the mundane people want. You're separating the enhanced from them and living your lives apart from them. When they realize that someone has started taking all of the powered individuals from their lands, they will also feel threatened. Eric's back straightened. Just as they feel threatened with them where they are. At least this way people will have the chance to live semi-normal lives. Harry nodded in understanding. Fair enough, we'll have to discuss a lot more, but at least we can agree that people need to be kept safe. He then stood up and picked up the bowl. Okay, I'm tired and hungry, let's go. He led them from the room when the door appeared and then transported them back to the island. Could you perhaps return me to a safe location? Eric asked once they were through. I could. Where would you like to go? Harry asked. Eric told him and Harry opened a portal to a place he knew of, placing a minor glamour on Eric so that he would not be recognized for a couple of minutes. Once he was through, Harry remembered that they needed a way to get in contact. He stepped through after him and handed him a card. Remember, if you even try to tell anyone about my abilities, you will lose all memory of them and what was revealed to you today. I suggest you don't let that happen. If I ever meet you and you seem to have forgotten me, I will not be giving you a second chance. You'll go straight to your deserved punishment and I'll do everything in my power to ensure you stay there for the rest of your life. He threatened. I assure you, as long as my people are safe, I will do everything in my power to prevent what happened to your world from happening to this one. Eric promised and held out a hand to Harry. Harry didn't hesitate, he took the hand and shook it once. Good. Call me in a week, I was looking forward to spending time with the kids this week. Eric actually smiled. I might have a few kids on my side that wouldn't mind a bit of a holiday. He offered. We'll have to consider it for next time. This week is as much for Logan as it is for me. We both enjoy spending time with the kids. Harry said, if you want, I might consider setting up a form of transport so the kids on your side can get a proper education at the institute from next semester. He offered. I'd obviously have to run it by Charles first, but I'm certain he'll allow it for the children. We'll have to consider it, Eric returned. Hopefully next semester I can start indoctrinating the next generation in my kingdom. He said with a smirk. It took Harry a moment to realize the man was joking. Okay. I've got to go. Keep your schemes to simple things like how to survive me should you step out of line. I will likely have a couple of contracts for you to sign before we start on the Genosha project. Eric looked up quickly at his mention of the island. He was about to ask Harry how he knew since he'd never mentioned it by name, but Harry stepped back through the portal and closed it with a smile. Of course Harry knew the island. He'd been there once installing PMGs. He returned to the bar and brought Charles with him. Once he was behind the counter, he hugged his girl and poured himself a drink. This one had actual alcohol, but he decided he needed it after what he had just been through. As a courtesy, he handed Charles one too. Thanks, Charles said, taking a small sip. His eyes widened at the taste and he coughed up a fireball before a sense of peace overcame him. This drink is wonderful, he exclaimed. Fire whiskey, it's specifically brewed and enchanted to calm you down and cheer you up, Natasha said for him as she looked between the two. How did things go? Harry was leaning on the counter and looked at the adults relaxing around and in the pool. Marie had gotten her hands on Tony's pool chair before Darcy could and was floating around the circular pool with a soda in the cup holder, while she relaxed and chatted with Darcy, for who Harry now conjured another pool chair. Natasha had decided to put on some standard tropical island music, which seemed to be enjoyed by everyone. We have the start of an agreement. As long as he keeps his nose clean, we can keep him under control with his warden over here keeping an eye on him. Harry said, indicating Charles. Warden, Charles asked, what do you think will happen? He's going to live on an island where he will most likely insinuate himself into the top ranks of the government. When he's there, he'll need to stay there to stay in charge. He'll probably never leave the island again, since he's considered a criminal everywhere else in the world, Harry explained. Once I've set him up with a couple of contracts, he'll never want to, turning the island into his prison. Charles finished. Quite devious, Harry. Thank you, Harry said, but we have to remember that he'll still have lieutenants and people out looking for more people to add to his ranks. I'll have to plan for that as well. This is another major undertaking. We'll have to set something up with Stark. You can't be expected to enchant that many contracts. Anybody wishing to enter or exit the island will have to go through the proper channels. Maybe keeping those in on the secret low would be a good idea. Natasha offered. Harry nodded and smiled at her. I'm so glad to have you with me. She frowned at him. I don't like that man, but I trust you to keep things under control. We had our hands on him and you let him go. I can find him again whenever I like. Tracking charm. Harry smirked. Natasha looked slightly relieved. You can probably tell what direction he is in if you concentrate on it. My magic should be able to find any trackers I left on people. Natasha frowned and closed her eyes. After a minute of concentration, her eyes opened suddenly and she pointed off in a direction. He's just over 10,500 miles that way. She then closed her eyes again and started practicing the new skill. Harry hadn't expected it but smiled. She must have a stronger mind or connection to his magic than he had anticipated. Charles was the only person with them at the bar at this point. Everyone else had been seen to the guest house and given a room and were now lounging around the pool area. It had been one of Harry's better ideas to enchant the guest house to expand itself to accommodate however many guests they should have. All of them had a clear view of the island with a large private balcony and windows in every direction, enchanted to look at the scenery around the houses but not intrude on anyone's privacy. Tony had wanted him to include jacuzzis on the balconies, but Harry had refused, stating that that was what the hot spring was for. Harry had set up enchantments so that he could keep the two sides separate when guests were around. This would be especially useful when Logan allowed the kids to come for a bath, which would be in a couple of hours still. They should be at the campsite by now, Harry mused. Let's go see, shall we? Charles nodded and frowned when a large carpet flew up to them. "Anyone want to go see the campsite?" Harry announced. Most of the adults indicated that they wanted to go, and Harry was glad he'd taken the time to make a larger carpet. He waited for some of them to dry off, having come from the pool. Some of them put on extra clothes. Hank had decided to take his natural form and was currently putting on a shirt. Harry took pity on his bedraggled state and cast a drying charm on him. Hank looked up and thanked him before he finished putting on his shirt and moved to the carpet. Harry and Natasha stepped to the front of the carpet and sat down, not that it really had a front. Harry lifted them up and started them in the direction he knew the camp to be. They spotted a few animals along the way, and there was the usual cooing from the female contingent as they spotted the unicorns. The youngest one tried to race them, but they were going too fast. This made the estrogen levels rise just a little more as the females all felt sad to lose sight of the magical horse. They soon reached the campsite in a clearing on a hill. Logan had requested logs, but had built every cabin by hand. It had been a project he put a lot of time and effort into. There were 10 cabins, all arranged around a central fire pit. There was also a large building where the kitchen and facilities were. Harry had put that one in. Logan had grumbled but accepted it. Hygiene was still important for health, and he understood that. They noticed Logan standing against a cabin as the eldest of the children caught their breath, having apparently just arrived. The younger kids were already in their cabins from the sounds of it. As they approached, Harry asked one of the kids with a half smile, "Why so tired?" The teen looked shocked and then frowned at all the smiling faces on the carpet. She puffed for a bit and then answered, "Mr. Logan took the younger kids up on a carpet when we got to the halfway point." A couple of more puffs later she finished, "They've had time to catch their breath. He wouldn't even take our bags with him, and we've been hiking for hours." She complained. She had been one of the sensible ones who had a backpack. There were a couple of kids with luggage. One muscular boy had a backpack and was carrying 2 suitcases for his friends. Apparently he had not struggled at all. Logan had not commented but had made note of the ones who had not listened. "I told you not to bring too much, you didn't listen," he said as he walked up to them. "Are they going to be ready for food in a bit? I was thinking of starting lunch." Harry said. Logan seemed to consider this. "Give us half an hour. I'll bring them by carpet. That way I can show them the sights and some of them can get themselves cleaned up." "Your carpet is not big enough," Harry said. "I'll bring them down by year group. It'll give everyone a fair amount of time to ask questions, and I can make sure to give them all the warnings and know when there's someone not listening." Logan said. Harry shrugged. "Sounds good. Do you need any assistance here? Darcy has offered to be a chaperone, so she'll stay here with the kids when you go," he said, looking over his shoulder at Darcy. She smiled and landed her broom. Any chance she got to fly she took. Hank followed her from the carpet. "I'll accompany the lady and then take a bit of a jog back to the resort." Harry smirked. "I think I can arrange for some company for you." He landed the carpet and apparated away. Natasha thought she knew what he had in mind. Her suspicions were confirmed when Harry returned with Steve. "You're in luck. The captain here has decided to keep you company for your jog. He always complains that nobody ever keeps up with him. Do me a favor and teach him a little humility." He joked. The kids had gone quiet. They had known Harry was Ghost. They just didn't think they'd see any of the other Avengers. There were a couple of giggles and shouts as children reacted the way children reacted. Steve had learned to tolerate it. He actually enjoyed the smiles he could generate just by showing up, especially in the younger children. Hank smiled the smile of a predator. "A worthy opponent would be a nice change of pace for me." He stepped up to Steve and introduced himself, extending his hand. "Dr. Henry McCoy, but you may call me Hank or Beast, whichever suits you best." Steve took the offered hand and shook it without pause. "Nice to meet you, Hank. I'm Steven Rogers, but everybody calls me Steve." "Or Captain," Harry put in with a smirk. He knew Steve just wanted to be considered normal when he was off duty. Steve smiled and shook his head. "You've been spending too much time with your brother." Harry just smiled as he stepped back onto the carpet. "Everybody ready? We're taking off again," he said as he sat down and the carpet slowly started to rise. As they started veering off, there was a scream and most of the X-Men jumped to their feet, getting ready for an attack. What they saw scared them. A dragon was walking into the camp. Harry smirked and locked everybody on the carpet into place. He wanted to see how the children handled this. Logan was standing there watching the kids as well. A couple of the older ones actually stepped in front of the smaller kids. Harry was certain he was looking at the next generation of heroes at that moment. He was certain Logan had planned this. The dragon walked in casually and started sniffing around. One kid fainted as the dragon approached her and sniffed her. An Asian girl stepped out from the other kids and screamed at the dragon. "Hey, over here!" As she screamed it and ran towards the dragon, a pink nimbus of energy started to enfold her, turning into some kind of protective armor. Another Asian girl stepped forward and visible electrical energy started running over her hands. Before anything else could happen, Logan stepped forward and placed a hand on Puppy's neck. "Hey there, girl, don't scare the children like that." He said it with a smile though. So there was no doubt that he had no problem with what the dragon had done. The girl with the pink armor slowed down and stopped when she saw Logan putting his hand on the dragon. "It was a test," she asked as her armor dissipated. "If it was, you'd receive top points, Hisako," Logan said before turning to the other girl. "And you'd be right behind her. Why did you hesitate, Noriko?" he asked of the girl with the electrical powers. Noriko shrugged. "You were here. When you did nothing, I assumed you wanted us to do something," she said. Harry took this opportunity to stand up and start clapping. He looked around him and remembered that he had everyone else frozen in place. He quickly released them and they joined him. "Well done, Hisako. You are definitely one of the ones I'm keeping my eye on," he said. Your instinct to immediately protect your fellow student is much like I would have done at your age. He turned to the other girl. You too, Noriko. I saw you considering everything first before reacting. That is the kind of thinking needed in team leaders. He congratulated before starting to veer off and heading back, ignoring the blushing girls as they started flying away. Both Noriko and Hisako looked at each other and smiled. They had started becoming friends a while back after they joined the institute at similar times. They had found that working together, they fared better in the danger room and had since teamed up. Hisako's near invulnerability but slower movement and Noriko's electrical attacks and enhanced speed made them an almost unbeatable team. They both had developed a crush on the handsome Englishman who sometimes visited the school to help out the children that had issues with control, but they knew it was just a crush. That didn't stop his praise from making them both happy for their actions. As Harry flew them back, Charles decided to ask the question everyone was still wondering about: when did Logan get a pet dragon? Harry smirked and looked at Natasha, who answered for him. Puppy isn't a pet, she's his familiar. What is a familiar and how do I get one? Kurt asked. He had thought the dragon was very cool. You can't, as with much in Harry's life, circumstances conspired to make that 1 in a million chance happen. Natasha said. At Kurt's hurt expression, she explained, normally you'd need to be a magical to have a familiar. Both you and the familiar would have magic that creates the bond. In Logan's case, Queen of Asgard was visiting one day and found that the dragon was trying to bond with Logan, the one being that she thought protected her since she could remember. Queen Frigga decided that Logan was worthy of the effort and created the bond for them as it falls within her divine jurisdiction. Queen Frigga, divine? Kurt asked skeptically. The Aesir are not truly gods, but they do have blessings that lean toward the divine. Harry explained. If you ever meet one, they would not be offended if you didn't treat them like gods. Don't worry, Kurt, nobody here would attack your faith. Not even them. He said. He knew Kurt was devoutly religious and didn't want to cause offense. Kurt relaxed a bit and nodded. Then he turned back to the conversation they had been having. Too bad, I would love to fly into battle on a dragon's back just once. Harry turned to him and said, most magical people in my world had an owl or Kneazle familiar. Having anything else was very unusual. Kneazle, he asked. They looked exactly like cats with longer ears, but were much more intelligent. One of my friends asked hers to deliver secret messages for her, and because the cat like her he did. He wasn't even her familiar at the time. Harry explained. The only 2 familiar bonds we've seen so far is a phoenix and a dragon. Can you blame us for not knowing that? Scott asked with a crooked smile. Harry didn't answer that. The trip home was going much more quickly and they soon arrived back at the bar. Harry had pointed out a couple of things of interest as they flew, taking a different route this time, but nothing that stood out. He did warn them against going into the greenhouses, warning them seriously that there were things in there that could kill them in hundreds of interesting and slash or painful ways. The greenhouses were the only buildings not situated on expanded land, since Harry had preferred to expand the already big, warehouse-sized buildings on the inside rather. They all contained crops that could feed thousands of mouths daily for years if they were growing food instead of ingredients and rare plants. Harry set them down and moved over to the bar. He started summoning ingredients from one of the expanded stasis cabinets in one of the cupboards by his feet and started setting out the ingredients for lunch and some snacks. It took only a couple of minutes and then he poured himself a butterbeer and the guests some drinks of their preference before he went to sit with his feet in the water. The adults talked for a bit and asked questions about the island and how big it was. Harry informed them that it used to be much smaller, even if it still takes the same amount of space on the face of the planet. There was some discussion and Harry tried to explain the principle, but it ended up not making sense to those well-versed in science. In the end he ended up saying it's simply magic, and that seemed to satisfy them. A short while later Logan appeared with the youngest of the children at around 13. Harry recognized the young demonic-looking girl, Colleen, from when she had joined the institute. He was glad to see her moving in a group of friends now. She seemed to have come to grips with her looks as she was not wearing the amulet Harry had given her to hide her horns and claws. As they landed, Harry got up and walked to the bar counter, beckoning to them to come to the counter. They trooped over the little bridge and walked to in front of him. Harry started, okay, so what we're doing for lunch is sandwiches. You'll see I have many ingredients, but if you want something I can't make, I'll give you $1 million on the spot, as long as you can and actually want to eat it. The kids laughed and Harry looked at Colleen. How about you, Colleen? Want anything specific? I can make any kind of sandwich you want. She first looked stunned that Harry remembered her name and then looked around behind Harry and decided to go for something safe. Can I have a toasted BLT on rye bread? Harry laughed, of course. Just to clarify, bacon, lettuce, and tomato on rye bread. Do you want the bread toasted or the whole sandwich as a panini? Panini, I think, Colleen said. Harry wasn't certain she knew what the term meant, but he started making the sandwich for her using magic. When everything was on the bread, he applied heat and pressure to the sandwich, right where it was on the conjured plate. A couple of seconds later, the sandwich was ready and cut into triangles. Harry offered her the plate and said, "Is that what you wanted?" he asked. At her nod, he smiled and said, "That will be one smile and a high five, please," he said, holding a hand out for the high five. The kids laughed and Colleen paid him with the requested currency. Then she stood back, both wanting to see what the other kids got and waiting for her friends. The sandwich needed to cool off a bit first as well. Natasha called her over and offered her something to drink too. When she explained that everything was actually water, she asked for a Coke. They continued this for the whole group. When that was done, the children thanked them again and went to go sit on the grass where Natasha had set up a large picnic blanket for them. By the time they had finished with the first group, the next group was dropped. They performed the same process again for the next group and the next, until only the last group was left. One of the boys decided to make it difficult for him and asked Harry to make him a party sub, filled with chicken mayo, cheese, chili peppers, and lettuce. Harry just smiled and transfigured the required ingredients from what he had and presented the 6-foot sandwich to the boy on a 6-foot plank which he conjured. He cut the sandwich into manageable sizes and looked the boy in the eye. "Now eat it," he said with a smile. The boy gulped and looked at his friends for help, most of which shook their heads. They wanted their own sandwich. If they could have anything, they'd be ordering their own. One of the boy's friends, who already had a sandwich, offered to help him carry it, for which he was grateful. They were soon sitting by the rest of the children. Harry watched as the boy started eating a portion of the sandwich while he continued making more for the other children. When everything was done, Harry moved over to the boy and sat down next to him. "Mind if I have a bit? It actually looked kind of good. I've been wanting to try it myself." The boy smiled at him and said, "Sure, help yourself." Harry took a portion and bit into it. It was actually not bad. "It's good, right? I know the chef, he's kind of cool." The boy joked. Harry smirked at him and smiled at Natasha when she came to sit by him and took a piece for herself. Pretty soon the other X-Men turned up and Harry actually needed to make more food. Apparently he had forgotten to offer lunch to the adults. He didn't think they really minded too much. It was a special occasion after all. The adults would have a bit of a holiday and Logan got to teach some survival, while showing the kids what he had been up to in the last couple of months. As everyone finished their meal, Harry looked up. He had sensed the approach but knew he'd only now be able to see them. As Harry watched, Hank rounded one of the houses on all fours and made his way to the bar at top speed, which was an impressive clip. Right behind him, Steve also rounded the corner, running faster than Harry had ever seen him move. He was catching up, but Harry could see he wasn't going to win this one. Hank jumped over the pool and laid a hand on the bar counter, just as Steve jumped over as well. Steve stopped just before colliding with Hank. He looked up and smiled. "You win," he said. "Congratulations." Hank was still breathing a bit heavily but managed to stand up straight and offer the man his hand. "We'll have to do that again sometime," he said. Steve looked happy about the offer. "I could go for another round," he offered. "Not today, my boy. I've got a beast of an appetite and I can tell we just missed lunch," Hank stated. Harry got up and walked over to the pair. "What can I get you? I decided to make sandwiches for lunch today. I can make you any kind of sandwich on any kind of bread," he offered. "I wouldn't want to inconvenience you," Hank stated. Steve nodded along. Damn, Harry would have to separate them. Before Hank's manners rubbed off on Steve. "Do you normally offer when it inconveniences you?" Harry asked. Not waiting for an answer to his rhetorical question, he said, "If you don't place an order now, it will inconvenience me, as I'll start making every kind of sandwich I can think of until you see one you like," he said as he walked into the bar. Steve and Hank looked at each other, apparently waiting for the other to order first. "You guys are so damn polite. It makes me want to hurt you." "Steve, what do you want?" Steve looked up and said with a smile, "Does a cheeseburger still count as a sandwich?" "Why, yes it does, Steve. Thanks for being the first person to think of that. Seriously, 40 kids, not one asked for burger." I was amazed. As Harry said it, he started directing food around and soon had Steve's order ready, 3 large cheeseburgers with all the toppings. "Here you go, Steve, enjoy." Steve smiled, took the plate and went to sit down at the counter. Harry knew he ate more than the average person and he would enjoy the burgers. Hank looked at what Steve got and smiled at Harry. "Can I have the same please, but add a couple of pickles on the side?" Harry smiled and his magic started doing the same task again. A minute later, Hank had his own burgers and he went to sit next to Steve. Steve looked at his dining partner and smiled at what he saw on his plate. "What's with the extra pickles?" he asked. Hank didn't say anything but held the plate so one of his pickles fell on Steve's plate. When he swallowed his first bite of perfectly prepared burger, he took a bite of one of the pickles and smiled. Steve shrugged and tried it himself. His eyes widened as he looked at the pickle and nodded. "Not bad," he said. Harry smirked and levitated a couple more pickles onto their plates before dropping a tall beer next to each of their plates, before he could leave. Logan showed up and Harry had to make another 2 burgers. He just knew he'd be making many burgers over the next couple of days. When everyone had finished their meal, Logan let them have the rest of the day for relaxing on the beach. There were a couple of sad faces as the kids realized they didn't have or bring swimming costumes from the cabins. Harry chuckled and opened a portal to the cabins. "Those of you with swimwear at the cabins, go through the portal and get ready. I'll open the portal again in 10 minutes, so don't be late. Darcy, if you'll please keep a head count and go with them," he asked. Darcy nodded and went with them. "As for the rest of you without, I can try to make some standard swimwear, but I'm afraid it will be nothing special. Swimming trunks for boys, one-piece suits for the girls. You take care of the boys, Harry. I've got the girls covered," Natasha said. She led the girls into their house and Harry conjured a place for the boys to change and made them some trunks. 10 minutes later, Harry opened the portal again and a stream of kids came back through with Darcy following behind them. Soon the kids were playing on the beach, with Darcy keeping an eye on them from her broom. As Harry stood and watched them, Charles rolled up to him and said, "It was a great idea to bring them here. There aren't many mutant-friendly beaches, at least not when the seasons are right." He said, "Thank Logan, it was his idea." Harry shrugged. Natasha was off conversing with some of the ladies of the group. She never left his sight these days. He worried that she was giving up her freedom to keep him safe. What's going on in that head of yours? Charles asked him. You seem preoccupied. Harry looked at the man and said, no offense, Charles, but I don't count you as one of the people I share my personal issues with, regardless of the fact that you know a lot more of my history now. I understand that. I've given you a couple of reasons not to trust me. Charles conceded. That being said, I do know the human mind better than most other people on the planet, and you have my secrecy bound by contract, so I literally couldn't reveal your secrets without your say-so. Who better to discuss your problems with? He offered. Harry thought about it for a second before he relented. I love my future wife. I want to spend every day with her and experience many things with her, but I feel like I'm holding her too close. I worry that she'll one day realize that she doesn't have a life of her own anymore. I don't want to lose her, but I can't let her go either. Stop, Xavier said, holding up a hand. That's all you need. You have the ability to show her any memory. Before bed tonight, show her this one. People sometimes need someone to talk to find the words to express themselves. You think of everyone as an individual, so you use different words with different people. Your mental processes change. I believe you've said enough. Ask her how she feels after she sees this memory. Oh, and if you do show her the memory, include this. Your future husband is a wonderful person, but everybody needs someone to talk to outside of their established relationships. Don't blame him for discussing things with me. Harry nodded and let that go for now. Then he had a thought. Why haven't you ever asked that I fix your spine since I mentioned that I could? He asked the wheelchair-bound man. Charles looked at him. Honestly, at Harry's nod, he continued, I'm not a young man anymore. I don't think I have the energy to go through physical conditioning to fix my legs even if I did have the capability to move them. Harry looked at him and smirked. One moment, please, he said as he apparated away and returned a minute later handing a bright orange potion to Charles. Drink that. Charles looked at him and then the potion. What does it do? He asked. Harry refused to answer and just waited for him to drink the potion. He decided to take the chance. Harry had yet to give him a reason not to trust him. He uncorked the top and smelled the potion. That is not a good smell. It probably tastes better than some of the potions I've had to drink over the years, Harry said, thinking of Polyjuice and Skelegro. Charles looked at the potion, pinched his nose and downed it. Even with his nose pinched, he still made a face. Tastes as bad as it smells. Can you tell me what it does now? He asked. No, but you'll know by tomorrow, Harry said mysteriously. Charles sighed. He had not expected that. Considering what they were talking about, he had a suspicion, but he'd rather not hope, so he allowed the conversation to drop. That evening, Harry and Natasha arrived in the Marauder's den. It was Natasha's first time there. Fury was there waiting for him and frowned when he saw her. I'm assuming you're following procedure, he asked. Harry nodded and walked up to Fury with a signed contract, handing it to him. Fury looked it over and signed it as well. Very well, he turned to Natasha and asked, what do you know? Nothing, sir. Harry wants me to be here and asked that I sign the contract. He said nothing else. I only knew he was meeting you tonight, and from the way the contract is set up, it looks like this is some sort of safe haven where secrets can be discussed freely as the contract enforces that they get kept. Natasha responded. That's not all of it, but good enough for now, Fury said. He took out his pouch and pulled out a book, handing it to Harry, who started reading through the latest entry. What do you think? He asked. May I show her? Harry asked, indicating Natasha after reading through the information. Fury looked at him for a moment and for a second looked like he wanted to ask something but thought about it again and then nodded. Here, Harry said to Natasha, handing her the book and indicating what to read. The book is obviously also protected in the room. Then he turned to Fury. I'm assuming you've been going mad-eye on people, and that's a list of everyone your foe glass identified as an enemy. Fury nodded. Yes, it would be great if there was a device that told us what they are planning, but I've identified more than half of S.H.I.E.L.D.'s active staff. Harry nodded. He'd seen the list. It seemed to just go on and on. Have you warned Coulson? Harry asked. I can't. He's too close to one of them. I need to wait for him to come here before I can inform him. Fury said it would be best to have a plan as well. Natasha had been looking through the list as well. Are you sure these people don't just dislike you? Fury gave her a cold look. I've had enemies for a long time. I know who they are, and they were on the mirror too, just not as close as most of the names you have there. Harry whistled as he made some coffee for them. How close? Close enough to start worrying. Whatever they are planning is happening soon. Project Insight only has a couple of months left before completion. Only the people on that list are on the project. If we don't do something before launch, we'll be in seriously deep shit, Fury stated. Project Insight? Natasha asked. Fury's face blanked over for a second, then he spoke. That information is above your clearance level. Marauder's Den is the only reason Potter knows about it, and the reason he'd not have been able to tell you about it before. He explained. The idea is to put 3 more highly advanced helicarriers in the air with enough turrets to make it an army unto itself. It has all the tech it needs to take out a terrorist cell of 20 in a crowd of 1,000 people with no innocent bystanders being hurt from miles away. Natasha looked between Fury and Harry just went with it. She asked. He doesn't have a say. He's not involved in the project at all. Pierce is too heavily involved with Insight. And as you saw, Pierce is at the top of the list, Fury stated. Harry put a hand on Natasha's shoulder. Nat, you need to remember this is where we discuss things and offer advice. This isn't work as much as it is a safe place where we can find support and ideas, a new perspective without fear of consequences, Harry said before turning to Fury. I don't like Insight myself, but I understand why Fury wanted it. Until now, that is. You still support it. Fury scowled. It would be the best defense we have, a system that can protect the entire country, he trailed off. Until it's taken over by an enemy before it even launches. Harry put in. Fury just scowled. Natasha asked, so what's the contingency in case S.H.I.E.L.D. gets infiltrated? Fury scowled again. There is none. S.H.I.E.L.D. was meant to be the last line of defense. We never planned for it to need to protect from itself. Harry raised an eyebrow. That doesn't sound like you. Your contingencies usually have contingencies. Fury looked upset with himself. I wanted to put one in place 10 years ago, but Pierce told me to drop it. Told me that I would only cause mistrust if such a plan existed. I should have known that he had alternate reasons. He castigated himself. Don't blame yourself, Harry put in. That reason is logical. No team can work if nobody trusts anyone. I agree with Harry. You could not have known, Natasha said. Now that you do and you seem to have some time still, we should plan for when it inevitably does happen. Harry had an idea. What about contracts? He asked. Fury thought about it for a moment and then shook his head. We have too many people. No matter how we watch our movements, chances are we'll be discovered. What about Xavier? Natasha asked. I know you don't like reading people, but he could probably get all the information we need and then disable all of our enemies at once. She said, no, our agents have too much classified information in their heads. I can't allow that. Fury said, speaking of which, how are you going to protect your mind, Agent Romanoff? He asked with a raised brow again. Natasha smirked. It's not necessary. All of mine and Harry's secrets are protected by contract. He's not allowed to enter or try to enter our minds, or he'll lose any memory associated with us. It's true, Xavier and his kids are actually on the island right now. The kids haven't signed anything, but he can keep them in line. Harry added. Fury seemed to accept this, which means Natasha is secure as you can make her. Any successes with adding mental shielding like you were going to? He asked, opening his coat and pointing at his badge. Not yet, Harry said. I've got a process ready, but there will be some mental effort involved from the person the shield is meant to protect. We'll have to have it tested and then probably set up a class for agents we can trust. Fury got a look in his eyes as he had an idea. That's actually perfect. It'll give us the opportunity to do something about these infiltrators. When Harry said nothing, Natasha volunteered. You intend to separate everyone and use that opportunity to put a contingency on place. Exactly. Fury smirked. He'd gone from what passed as worried for him to determined, which meant he was scowling but less than normal. It would mean placing magic on everyone and probably tracking everyone's movements. You're asking me to start working full-time again. Harry said. It was not a question. Fury looked angrily at him. You are probably the only person that could pull this off, Potter. I need to know how deep this goes, who they are, what they are doing. Not even S.H.I.E.L.D.'s Ghost Squad could be trusted with this, he said, referring to the 5 Ghost Gear operatives. Harry had expanded on their number when Fury had proven there was a need for it. More security had been put in place as well. At least we know they are secure. The contracts would have been voided otherwise. Harry didn't look happy. I can help, but I'm already quite busy, he said. He thought about it for a second and looked at Natasha. I have an idea though. Fury looked at Harry and asked, what did you have in mind? Their discussion ran into the night and well into the morning. Agent Hill contacted Fury on his mirror to confirm he was fine, using coded phrases just in case. When they were done planning, Harry took Natasha back and they went to rest. Harry had a tour to run in the late morning and then he'd need to start on his latest inventions. The next morning, Harry woke up at an alarm he was no longer used to. He looked over only to find Natasha was already gone. A note on his bedside table stated that she had gone to train with Sensei. They had been on vacation for a week and she had not gone for training as regularly as she'd have liked. He shrugged and went to the kitchen to make some coffee when he remembered the kids and decided to get started on their breakfast as well. Knowing Logan, they'd probably been up for an hour already and running laps around the plateau. Harry grinned at the thought. Logan would take such pleasure in making them both love and hate camping trips to the island. He went to the bar and left a message at the counter to indicate where he'd be. Before he left, he saw Scott on the beach, jogging towards the houses. Harry smirked and turned a portal into being right in front of the startled X-Man, who was unable to stop his movement in time and went through the portal and right into the swimming pool. When he surfaced, he glared at Harry. Not cool, he exclaimed. Would you prefer the hot spring next time? Harry smirked. I'd prefer not being thrown in any kind of water if you don't mind, he said, getting out of the water. Looking down at his wet outfit, Harry chuckled and cast a drying charm on the man. Thanks, he mumbled. Oh, come on, I know for a fact that the swimming pool's water is always at a comfortable temperature. Harry said. It's still cold water in the morning. Scott whined. Gotcha, Harry said. Next time I'll send you to the hot spring. Scott scoffed. But Harry could see the twitch as he restrained a smile. Tell you what, you can choose the next person to go into the water, Harry offered. Really? Scott asked. Really, Harry confirmed. Okay, Scott nodded. You now, he smirked. Okay, Harry smirked and stepped into the pool. Then he got out and dried himself off as well. If I were you, I'd have sent Natasha into the water. That might have actually inconvenienced me. Harry smirked. Scott's smile vanished off his face, realizing he had missed an opportunity. You have practice with this kind of thing, don't you? Prank war with the god of trickery, Harry stated easily. Who won? Scott asked. Nobody. War's still going, but I think I'm in the lead. I did turn him into a woman at our last meeting, Harry said nonchalantly. Scott laughed until he saw Harry's face. You're serious? I didn't know you could do that. Harry smirked and transfigured Scott's hands into talons. there's much that I can do. That I don't go around advertising. Then he opened a portal to the kitchen of the children's camp, waving Scott after him. Scott followed him through. When he noticed his hands, he was amazed. If you can do this, why not just undo unwanted mutations? He asked. Because it's natural. Harry said, birth defects are one thing, mutation is a whole other thing. There's also the fact that my magic is usually only temporary unless I enchant something, but that is a whole other thing again. He said as he waved in Scott's direction, undoing the transfiguration. I also have to know what I'm doing at all times. If I was a little off or forgot things like blood flow or muscular and bone structure, it could have hurt you. Imagine I fix one thing only to cause more problems. Scott thought about it and nodded. I see what you mean, he said finally. So that's why you focus on making enchanted items that make illusions. I also add other things. People will still notice if things in an illusion and reality don't align correctly, so there are effects in place to help with that as well. Harry expanded. What I do is in no way simple. I studied for years to be able to do what I do. Even so, I'm not a doctor and prefer to make temporary changes only when I do it all. Other than that, I couldn't have healed people, but that makes the body what it's supposed to be, not what I want it to be. So your healing works like a mutant healing factor? Scott asked. Not exactly. Magic is an external source that works on willpower. I want it to fix things and make them as they were or as they are meant to be, and the magic does the rest. Harry explained. How does the magic know what things should be like? Scott asked, confused. Harry shrugged. I don't know, though my one friend had a theory about that. Supposedly magic is a source of universal energy, meaning it contains all energy forms. Some theoretical energy forms don't run in the same direction in time as us, he was saying before being interrupted. Tachyons, Scott interrupted. A theoretical particle that moves faster than the speed of light and goes back in time. Harry snapped his finger and nodded as he moved to the storage area and summoned some items to start breakfast with. That's what she called it, yes. Anyway, apparently magic knows what will and won't work or goes back to check and then makes it the way it should be. It's a big chicken and egg thing where one theory can't be proven over the other due to similar limitations in our understanding of magic. Wait, are you saying magic is sentient? Scott asked. Before Harry could answer, there was a gruff chuckle from the door where Logan was standing unnoticed. He was not even looking at them. Instead, he was looking out of the door. Of course it is. How else do you explain why Harry was sent to our world and not to a random dead dimension? How does his enchantments adjust as necessary or know what people experience as sight or sound to make believable illusions? Harry smiled at Logan before asking, how long until the kids need breakfast? Give them 10 more minutes. I took them out for a morning walk. They are currently cleaning up. Logan smirked. You might want to do your thing later. It was a bit nippy this morning. Some of them might get sick. Can do. Harry nodded. And just so you know, most of what you just described doesn't take into account for magic's sentience. All of that was done by design and with the wielder's intent. What does need sentience is intent-based wards, where a ward needs to understand dark or evil intent before doing something to the person approaching it. Wards, Scott asked. Imagine you want to protect a national monument with magic. I cast the spell keeping those that wish to deface it away by making them think they have something more important to do. Harry said, now a teenage boy might remember a date that he's late for and an older man might remember he parked his car in a handicapped space. How does the ward know what would make the people turn and leave? Could it be reading their minds? Scott offered. Possibly. The fact is we're not sure, Harry said. We only know that the effect is affected by the person casting the spell. A malicious person's ward might have that same boy think he set his parents' house on fire. The man might think he ran someone over and he needs to clean up the evidence. The effects of such a ward could permanently affect someone's life, causing mental scars or lead to harsher side effects like murder, suicide, or mental breakdowns, which is why it would be considered dark magic. Logan and Scott just looked at him before Logan asked, what would your magic do? Harry smirked. The last time I had to set up one of those, the person that was affected thought he had messed his pants. It was quite funny to watch him trying to cover up nothing as he ran away. He chuckled. That ward was something special though. It was set up to affect a person in a similar way to what they had in mind to do wrong. Apparently the guy had intended to pee on my porch. That was in the days before I knew how to completely hide my property. Logan chuckled. Sounds like something you would do, he said before pushing away from the door as he saw Harry finish some of the food and took the platter from him to take to the serving area. Do you need help? Scott asked, suddenly realizing he was just standing there being useless. Nah, let Logan handle this part. He's been looking forward to the kids coming to visit for weeks now. Harry said, Logan, really? Scott asked, yes, really. Harry said emphatically, you might not know this, but he's almost got all his memories back. He remembers who he was at least and wants to help out the kids because he was once also a confused kid with powers and nobody to explain what was going on with him. Scott didn't say anything as he looked at where Logan was standing a short while ago. Then he cleared his throat. I suppose that makes sense. I thought you should know. I heard you guys don't always get along. Harry said, I like Logan. If you look past his gruff exterior you might find a gruff interior, but it's all honest. He doesn't lie or manipulate. He's a real man, one that was born in a different era. His situation is much like Steve's, except Steve hasn't learned about the pain of outliving your loved ones. Scott reeled in realization. You mean, yes, and we don't talk about it, Harry said with a pointed look as Logan entered and took another 2 trays away. Scott nodded his head somberly. I understand, he said. He knew the pain of loss, of course, but he could not imagine looking back and seeing everyone he cared for withering away with time and being unable to join them even if you wanted. It would definitely explain a lot of Logan's personality. Can you do anything for him? Like what? Harry asked. I offered him a place here on the island and he seems to love it. I might also have another use for him here on the island, which will see his quality of life increase a bit. You might understand a bit later this week when we go to some of our latest creatures. Harry smirked. Are you going to hike with the kids or will you fly with me and the rest? I think I'll go with them when they leave. Scott said, I'd like to see the sights with the kids. I suspect most of the team would like that too. This is a beautiful island. He explained. Thank you, Harry said as he finished another platter, finishing off the last of the ones he was filling with food. He quickly levitated the porridge into a serving tub and put it on a trolley with one of the other platters loaded underneath it. That's it for the kids' food, Harry said. Logan arrived and rolled the trolley out with a nod of his head. Harry just smiled at him and followed him out. What they saw had Harry smiling. The kids were smiling, even if a couple of them looked tired already. Logan must have decided to have them work up an appetite. They were apparently waiting for Logan before they dished up. After Logan loaded the last of the food, he turned to the kids. Okay, you know the rules. You go by year group, youngest first. That was all he said. He then clapped his hands and the youngest ones instantly got up and started dishing up. Darcy arrived just then on her broom. Where have you been? Logan asked. I was asleep. When nobody answered at Harry's door, I came here. Darcy said. She looked at Harry. You could have woken me, she complained. You could have set your alarm. Harry returned. I did, Darcy retorted. Look how early I am up now, point out the coffee, she said imperiously. Logan smirked at her and pointed at the horizon. Back at the resort, he said, when did people start calling it that? Harry wondered aloud, then he turned to Darcy. No coffee for the kids, they have tea or juice. He said, what? Darcy exclaimed. You can't expect me to function without a cup of java first. Harry smirked and said, see you back at the house then. Then Harry quickly opened a portal and pulled Scott through it with him before closing it. Then he laughed. What's so funny? Scott asked. Harry was still laughing but finally responded, she'll have to fly back out through the mist. Didn't you see her outfit was damp? By the time she gets here she'll be completely wet. He laughed again. That's not very nice. Came a voice from behind them. They turned to see the professor in his chair, smirking at them. Scott looked at him strangely. Did you put on some weight? He asked, not sure that it made sense. Charles smiled more openly. Indeed, it seems that Harry has decided to fix my physique even if he has not decided to fix my spine yet. Now that Scott knew what to look for, he saw it too. The professor's legs seemed thicker and his upper body seemed to have gained some form. What did you do? Scott asked Harry. Harry smiled and said, Bruce has been working on a potion for restoring muscle mass that was lost due to muscular dystrophy. It's not perfected yet and the side effect would be a painful regrowth at this point, but he trailed off. Since I can't feel it, I'm a perfect guinea pig. Charles said, nodding. Harry shook his head. No, we know it works and we know the side effects. You're just the first person to benefit from a full dose at once. You'll be tired for the rest of the day as your body takes the energy it needs from your stores. I would suggest that you eat a full breakfast and then drink protein shakes for the rest of the day, until your body stops needing the supplements. Nothing from my taps either. You need real energy and loads of protein-rich food. Harry led them back to the bar and started preparing breakfast for the adults. Shortly after starting, Darcy showed up, shivering and drenched. She walked to the opening for the bar counter and tried to walk in, but was stopped by Harry's magic. Get over here so I can hit you, she exclaimed. Harry sniggered and waved at her twice. The first one dried her off and the second sent a steaming cup of coffee to her. She contemplated throwing it at him until her shivering stopped and she took her first sip. Lord, that's good coffee, she said as the cup took all of her attention and she sat down at the counter. Now if you're nice to me, I might set you up with a charm that lets you bypass the mist entirely, Harry said. I've been nothing but nice to you, Darcy said. I have to disagree, you were just threatening bodily violence on me. Harry stated, that's because you left me and you knew I'd have to go through that fog again. She said, then she looked around. Why is there no fog here? That's because my brother controls the weather and apparently the time of day on his island. A voice said from the side. Harry looked around and saw Loki standing there. Damn, he knew he'd forgotten something. Loki had access to his parents who had access to the portkey to the island. What are you doing here, Loki? Harry asked. You left just yesterday. I've come to be of assistance, Loki informed him. Thor is off fighting an army that was attempting to invade one of our people's lands and there is only so much to do in Asgard. Harry straightened at this, but Loki continued, no need to worry. Our muscly-bound brother will not be in any danger from them. If he's smart about it, he'll have some fun before taking out their strongest and breaking their spirit. Scott spoke up. Harry, why is the guy who tried to take over our world calling you his brother? Harry looked at him and saw his finger poised on the button on the side of his visor. That's because I was adopted into their family. Harry said, don't worry though, he's under magical contract. And that excuses him, Scott exclaimed. Harry stepped out from the bar and blocked Scott's line of sight. It does not, nothing ever will. What I will say though, is that he was not in his right mind and someone manipulated him. Loki shocked Harry by moving him aside and stating, he is right to be upset with me. Do not put yourself in danger on my behalf. But Harry started. No buts, he is right to be angry at me. I attacked your people with the intent to conquer them. The fact that I was being used as a means to an end doesn't matter. Loki said, then he addressed the seething mutant. Attack me and I can forgive you. If you hurt my brother, I swear to you that you will be made to regret it for the rest of your life. he said with a calm tone. Scott, let it go. Harry is in control here, Charles said. Scott thought about it for a second before his hand moved from his visor. You betray Harry or us and the same goes for you. He threatened back before sitting down and patently ignoring Loki. Loki walked up to the bar and sat down a couple of seats down. We need to talk when you are available, brother. I hear there is some intrigue afoot and your schedule is filling up. Loki stated. Has Heimdall been looking in on private conversations and speaking of them? Harry asked with a raised brow as he went back to preparing breakfast. Loki chuckled. Strangely, he keeps private information private. No, this time he alluded to his inability to see exactly what was going on, but that he could follow the signs left by your comrades that there is something afoot. Harry wondered about that for a bit as he put plate after plate in front of the assembling adults. You're saying that there is the possibility that Heimdall can't see where my meeting was last night? He asked. He would never admit it. But he mentioned something about secrets you tell nobody. I think it has to do with when you reveal hidden locations to people. Loki said after he thanked Harry for the plate he put in front of him. That doesn't make any weight. Harry suddenly had an idea. He can't see through a Fidelius until I tell the secret to someone and he hears or sees it. He laughed at finally unraveling that little mystery. He must hate being kept in the dark. He laughed and looked up into the sky. I'm on to you, Heimdall. Loki was nodding and offered/asked, so you had a meeting in a place that nobody but you knows about? Harry's face blanked and he said, I'm not at liberty to discuss that information. Before going back to pouring coffee, tea and juice, then he started making a couple of bottles of protein shake and casting preserving spells on them for Charles before handing them over to him. Here you go, Charles, he said. Thank you, Harry. Charles accepted the bottles before he continued his conversation with Hank, while Jean and Aurora listened in, having been interested in why Charles seemed different today. Hank had brought it up. As I was saying, imagine my surprise when I woke up this morning and found my legs were heavier than when I went to sleep. It took a while longer to get dressed and I suspect it will be even harder tomorrow. He said, a cure for muscular dystrophy, how remarkable. Hank said before looking at Harry, and Bruce Banner is the one that made this potion, he asked. Yup. I introduced him to the art when we found a calming draft kept his alter ego in line. He wanted to know how it worked and I showed him. He's been doing research and creating new, more scientific processes to create the potions. He's currently working on recreating a very cool potion that makes the drinker extraordinarily lucky. Harry gushed over his friend. Lucky, there's a potion that affects personal probability. That sounds fantastic, Hank stated. How does it work? Harry shrugged. You'd have to ask him. I'm no potions master. He's told me to not contact him for a couple of days though while he works on that. As I understand it, Felix Felicis is one of the most difficult potions to brew ever, so I suggest you wait a couple of days before contacting him. He instructed. Hank's spirits seemed to fall as he sat there looking at his mountain of food. Perhaps my brother can give us an introductory class on the subject or leave us with his pensive and a memory or two, Loki offered. I've been meaning to look into this potion's craft myself, that and the possibility of using that miraculous artifact again. Hank seemed to rally a bit. That does sound like something I might enjoy. What is a pensive though? He asked. Harry let Loki answer. He had not realized Loki had wanted access to it again. The pensive is a bowl into which a memory can be placed and viewed by any who wishes to experience what the owner of the memory had. It is quite marvelous, as it can show you details you don't even remember seeing. If there were any more than the one my brother has, I'd have procured it already. Loki smirked. You mean steal? Harry scoffed as he dug into his own breakfast, snagging a piece of bacon from Hank's plate when the man had stopped eating. I was going to save that for last. Hank objected. You snooze, you lose. Harry said as he bit into the bacon. You were right to save this piece though, it's perfectly crispy. Then he smirked and put another couple of pieces of bacon to cooking with a wave of his hand. A couple of seconds later Hank had a few more pieces in his plate, and he started digging in, not wanting Harry to take his food again. After the meal was complete, Harry informed them of the plans for the rest of the day. They had a couple of hours to do what they wanted before they would be flying to the enclosures to which Logan was taking the children. Logan planned on stopping in a couple of places to teach the kids about some of the magical plants Harry had planted around the island. Scott and a few of the others would go along for the hike. The kids would be occupied with their team-building exercises in the meanwhile, before they started the hike to the first enclosure. After the last creature of the day, the kids would be given time to swim and play. Harry had his own plans for the next couple of hours. He intended on setting up a room of requirement on the island. He wasn't setting it up only for Natasha, not that he would admit anyway. After the informal meeting, Harry went to fetch the pensive. He returned to find most of the X-Men waiting for him. You're all interested in potions? He asked. Charles spoke up for them. We have time, and potions promises to be an interesting and useful part of our future if what you told us is correct, he said. Harry nodded as he conjured some comfortable furniture and placed the pensive in the middle on a small platform. Okay, sit down, people. Make sure you are in a comfortable position since you'll be in that position for 2 hours. When everyone was seated, he continued. I'll be giving you the memory of teaching Bruce how to harvest certain magical plants correctly, and then the process of making a calming draft, he said as he used his occlumency to remove the memory quickly and placing it into the pensive. There is something fun at the end as a surprise. Enjoy. What do we do when the memory is done? Should I store the pensive away? Loki asked, looking between the pensive and the bar. Harry noticed that nobody was sitting close to him. He could understand that. Loki had a lot to make up for. It was heartening, though, that they chose to go with him anyway, even if they didn't like him. "Oh, right, give me your left hand," Harry said. When Loki did, Harry cast a spell on his index finger. "When you want to remove it, touch that finger to the memory and it will cling to it. Then you can deposit it into this vial. You'll need to learn to do this on your own if you ever want to use a pensive on your own," Harry said, handing him an empty vial. Then he turned to the rest. "Okay, have fun. Hopefully I'll be back before the lesson ends." At this, Harry walked off into the space he had decided to set up the new room of requirement. He summoned the required building supplies and started work. About 2 hours later, the building was complete and he started enlarging the inside of the single-room building. It was about the same size as his house on the outside, which meant it was huge on the inside. Harry had discussed the idea of a room of requirements on the island with Tony and Bruce one day, and they had made a couple of suggestions based on popular sci-fi. Now, with his intent-based magic, the room could emulate near infinite space as long as those in the room stay within a certain distance from each other. The intent-laced enchantment would allow the exit to appear when someone decides to leave. For all intents and purposes, the moment you enter, the exit disappears and you are in a world of your own making. In theory. That's why Harry was putting off the actual enchantment until Natasha arrived. Just in case he got stuck inside and he needed someone to open the door for him. While he waited, he went back to the pensive. He noted everyone was still in the same position they were in when he left. He watched them for a while before shrugging and turning to leave. Just as he took his first step, he heard the sound of movement. He turned around and saw a couple of people looking at him, one or two stretching. Scott was the first to speak. "Dude, you've got a room full of gold." Harry was dumbfounded for a while before he realized what he was hearing. "Damn, I knew I was forgetting something." He cursed as he chastised himself. He looked at Loki and asked quickly, "Where did the memory begin?" "Just after you entered the hallway with all the rooms." Loki said, "I'm assuming it is a hidden location like New Atlantis in your home." Harry nodded in relief. He had used his occlumency to take the memory without needing to remember the whole thing himself. Let that be a lesson to him. No sharing memories without viewing them. "Sorry about that. I have some things I keep secret for obvious reasons," he explained. "Like a library of magical knowledge," Loki said, a look of wonder in his eyes. "A self-contained ecosystem with plants and animals," Aurora said. "A room full of magical artifacts," Charles said. "A potions lab stocked with unique ingredients," Hank said. "Greenhouses suspended in time," Jean said. "Magical windows to fantasy castles," Marie said. Scott simply reiterated, but with more emphasis, "Dude, you've got a room full of gold." Harry rubbed the back of his neck and nodded. "Yeah, I do. That wasn't the point, though. Did you enjoy the lesson?" As everyone seemed to get themselves under control, Hank was the first to speak up. "This potions master you spoke of with Dr. Banner, would I be correct in stating anyone could, with the right ingredients and tuition, pursue this field of study?" Harry was not shocked at the interest he heard in Hank's voice. "I don't know what to tell you. Bruce is the one that knows the most about the subject at this point. If anyone wanted to become a potions master, he'd be the one to speak to. All I can say is that if anyone decided to study the subject, we'd need a full-time teacher that has worked their way through to the mastery and probably a magical contract protecting the information. Magic is a responsibility, not a right. We could only allow people to study it if we knew for certain they would not abuse the power." Charles frowned at this and asked, "Do you intend to hold a monopoly on this knowledge? Only those who agree with you may have it." Harry smirked. "Those with the power to affect others' lives often abuse it. Power is a responsibility. Right now I have a lot of both and can choose who to share it with. Fortunately, I only have one requirement: intend no harm. The fact that I can enforce it is just a bonus." Charles thought about it for a moment before asking, "What harm could potions do?" When Harry raised an eyebrow, he continued, "We've only heard of healing, calming, and restorative potions. Maybe telling us what else potions could do would help us understand." Harry looked at Loki and nodded at him. Loki accepted and took this question. "Imagine you are drinking your morning tea and the next person you saw became the love of your life. Your tea had love potion in it. Imagine you were swimming and suddenly you forgot how to float. Your pool had a forgetfulness potion in it. Imagine you are caring for an infant," Loki was saying. "Stop," Harry quickly interjected. "I'm sure they get the point." He looked Loki directly in the eyes. "Never go that far, it's not cool." Loki shrugged. "The best examples that people learn from always has an element of fear." He stated unrepentantly, "I was making your point. That being that for every good use for a potion there is also a bad one. Someone with emotional issues that wish to reawaken their love for their spouse might use love potion on themselves to see their paramour in the light of love once more to help fix what was broken. A person with mental scars might choose to forget his troubles for a while so that they can once again see that there are reasons to live. These would be some of the correct uses for those potions." Harry saw that there were nods all around. Loki is right. There are always ways to abuse the powers we are given. I don't intend to allow people who might abuse these powers to gain them in the first place. Potter Innovations is the only company with access to magical ingredients anyway. Anyone that wishes to learn would basically gain a skill they could only use working for or with me and my people. Bruce would probably be the department head for potions anyway. Harry then turned to Hank. "That being said, I can tell you are interested in the field of study and that you and Bruce would get along. If you want, I don't see why you can't partner up with him. You would just need to sign the same contract he has and follow the rules like he and Tony had to when they started. No experimenting until you've reached a full 5th-year education status. Hank thought about it. I'm assuming that was the minimum for you at your old school. Harry nodded. After 5th year, potions was not mandatory, and you had to get what amounts to at least a B+ in the last exam to continue into the last 2 years of advanced school study. That doesn't even begin to start you on your mastery. Hank thought about it, then asked, how long did it take Bruce to reach that level? Harry smiled. He did it in under a month of dedicated study. If I were speaking comparatively to normal people, he's probably at a level now where he surpassed mastery and spent another 10 to 20 years in private research. The fact that we have access to technology here that we did not in my old world helps a lot. Hank looked dumbfounded, and he's only been at it for how long? A little over a year. Harry supplied. Hank nodded as if making a decision on the spot. I'd need to speak to him about it, but it sounds like his research will change the world one day. I would love to be a part of that. Harry smirked again. Imagine what will happen once we figure out how to sell the cure to the common cold. Let alone that Bruce intends to start focusing on a cure for cancer in the next year still. There were dropped jaws all around. Harry looked at his bare forearm and said, will you look at the time? I need to be somewhere. Who's joining the hike and who'd like another memory to view? He asked, turning a portal into being. Scott, Jean, Hank and Marie went through the portal. Aurora looked like she wanted to do both. She looked at him and asked, what's the memory? It's a surprise. Harry smirked. Aurora thought about it and sat back down, deciding to keep Xavier company. Loki was also staying after all. Harry extracted a vial from his pocket and put the contents into the pensieve after closing the portal. Then he apparated to the house in search of Natasha. When he found her in the living room reading a report of some kind, he was still sporting a huge smile. Good morning. What's got you in such a good mood, Harry? Natasha asked. Harry hugged her and kissed her before informing her of his progress on the room and what memories he had decided to show the X-Men and why. You've had a busy morning. I wish I could see Loki's face when he realizes that your second memory is actually a compilation of your prank war highlights. Harry snickered as he picked up a picnic basket and added a couple of items for Natasha, for when she accompanied him. I'm actually hoping he'll react a certain way. If we're lucky, the X-Men will stop being openly hostile to him. He's a long way from being the perfect prince, but he's really trying, and I'd like to avoid situations where it's made more difficult for him. His showing up and being useful might also work in his favor. I hope you're right, Natasha said noncommittally. Changing the subject, she asked, when do you think you'll have the items ready for me? I'm starting on them this afternoon after today's tour. I'll also need to go look in on the nymphs. Once they are ready, we can take the kids there. Harry said. Natasha looked at him through narrowed eyes and asked, you're actually hoping one of the boys go looking for them before the week is out, aren't you? Maybe a little, Harry confessed, but come on, it's the perfect setup. Natasha just laughed and hugged him. Never change, she said. She secretly wanted to see who in the group would be the first and last to try. They were soon on their way to the room, taking a short stroll while chatting around the houses before ending at the location Harry had chosen for the room, which was just a short bit away from the resort. Harry wanted to keep it away from any guests that might not be privy to it. It was completely within view of the pool, bar, and hot spring, but would be magically protected from sight. Natasha kissed him good luck before settling in to wait for the long enchantment process to complete. An hour later, Harry was dripping with sweat as he walked out of the room with a huge smile on his face. Natasha handed him a towel to dry himself off, and he took it gratefully. How did it go? She asked anyway. It took more effort than last time, but I liked the result. I was able to do a couple of things I had wanted to try out for a while. Harry informed her as he sat down and fell back onto the soft grass. It should be safe. Try going to see Sensei quick. Just remember you have to will the exit into place, otherwise your subconscious mind will just supply what should be behind every door. If you don't know how to, you could still get stuck in there. He warned. Natasha nodded and stepped to the empty wall before pacing in front of it. A moment later the familiar door appeared and Natasha opened it. Behind the door stood Sensei, apparently waiting for Natasha to open the door. He looked at Harry and pointed. You have been absent for too long, he said. When you next come to train, I will take you on personally and you will be taught to respect the training time you have squandered. He then turned and walked back into the dojo. Natasha was shocked. Was he just waiting for me? She asked. Harry shook his head. It's a reflection of your requirements, love. I'll join you tomorrow, I promise, but that's not what worries me, he said. His hand was outside the door and it didn't dissipate. What does that mean? Natasha asked as she watched the door disappear. I'm not certain, but I think it requires testing. Harry said, let's not start using this just yet. He placed a ward as they started walking back to the house. Natasha would soon be on mission again, so they had decided to spend a bit of extra bonding time together over the next couple of days. They were on their way to go take a leisurely ride on the carpet before the tour. When Harry looked up with a smile, looks like the memory ended, he said. Natasha cocked her head and heard it herself. It was the sound of laughter out by the bar where Harry had set up the pensieve. Without discussion, they both turned and went to investigate. What they found made Harry smile. Loki was laughing with them in his new female form. I know, and now I'm stuck like this for the next month. Thank Odin, I can hide it most of the time with an illusion. But Mother insisted I wear a dress as a proper princess should. He was saying in his feminine voice, showing off the frilly gown he was suddenly wearing. Charles and Aurora seemed to be enjoying the spectacle and Loki knew how to work people to his favor. It seemed he had capitalized on the opportunity and come out on top as Harry had hoped. Perhaps having him in a different form would help too. I'm glad you enjoyed the memory, Harry said from where he stood with a smile on his face. Loki scowled. That wasn't a memory. Those were many memories, all showing only the tricks you did to me, Loki exclaimed. Yes, I tried showing only the good ones, and that's what I came up with, Harry said while buffing the nails of one hand on his chest. All of the ones I did were far funnier. Loki objected. Oh really, why don't you show us, Harry offered. He twitched a finger and replaced the pensive with a fruit bowl from his kitchen. Loki noticed the magic and looked down at the bowl. That's not fair, he objected. Harry just smirked. That's another one for me then. You broke the rules, you did 2 in a row now, Loki exclaimed victoriously. Did I? Harry asked. You showed them your pranks and made it so I couldn't retaliate. That's 2. Loki insisted. Where in the rules did we state that showing people the memories of tricks was going to be considered a trick? I specifically recall stating that having an audience was far more preferable and you agreeing, Harry pointed out. Loki growled, but then calmed his features. Fine, it's my turn next and you won't see it coming, he stated. Harry smirked. Bring it on, he said. Charles and Aurora had enjoyed the show and went to their respective pastimes until the time would come for the first tour of the week. Harry and Logan had worked out a schedule and planned to get to all of the creatures at some point during the week. Harry had a couple of other plans for the week, so he needed to be able to trust these people to be left to their own devices when he wasn't around. He had decided to take Loki up on his offer and have him play bartender when he wasn't around. Loki had easily agreed, and Harry had made him promise not to trick any of the X-Men. Of course I wouldn't, not after you put in the effort to try and ingratiate me with them by showing them all those tricks you pulled on me, Loki said with a smirk. When Harry gave him a look, he asked, what did you think I didn't understand what you were doing? Who do you think you are talking to? He scoffed. Harry nodded and said, fair enough, just be careful, they might not look it but many of the people here are more powerful than you. I'd rather not have to explain to Odin that you insulted the wrong person and got yourself killed. Loki's eyebrows rose at that as he looked to where Kurt was chatting to some of the other X-Men who had tagged along but were content to be left to their own devices. Truly, who's the most powerful here? Besides me, Harry asked, considering it. Jean Grey has an extra-dimensional being of pure energy living in her that could destroy you and any planet you are standing on with a little effort. Charles Xavier is a telepath of such power he could disable a person's mental functions and probably stop their heart from miles away. Anywhere on the planet if he's allowed to use a device he has at his institute. Kurt could probably teleport you into a wall if he was so inclined. He spoke aloud as he considered it. And these people just hang around on your island for holiday? Loki asked incredulously. It's not like they are inclined to do these things. Kurt would rather pray for you than attack you. Charles would probably have difficulty entering your mind undetected if you've got any sort of rudimentary magical mental shielding. Harry said, the only person even I would avoid pissing off is Jean. She's scarily powerful. I don't know if I'd be able to take her out and somehow doubt it. Loki's eyebrows attempted to rise into his hairline. How do I avoid attracting her ire? Just be friendly and whatever you do, don't flirt with or attack her or her husband. Harry said honestly. Why would I do that? Loki asked. Why would you attack Earth? Came a voice from behind them. When they turned around they saw Charles rolling up behind them. I've been monitoring his mind since he arrived. When Harry made to object, he raised a hand. I can see he's not entirely to blame for his actions, but I wouldn't allow an enemy of all mankind to walk around my children without keeping tabs on him or investigating. He turned back to Loki. You are not human, but psychology is psychology. If you want to speak to someone who can be impartial, I'll be here all week, he said with a slight smile before turning and rolling away again. Loki scowled after him. Does he think me a child that needs a shoulder to cry on? Then he turned on Harry. How do you protect your mind? I couldn't even tell he was in there. He's all about the mind and psyche. He could probably tell if a person is gay by talking to them about the weather and taking notes on their reactions to the movement of clouds, all without entering any minds. Harry said, as for the mental protection, I'm afraid you'll have to wait. There are many reasons for it, but you'll have to trust me that they will do you no good this week. Either that or you could go home, I suppose. Loki thought about it for a bit, but decided he'd rather stay. I'd take a mind rapist over boredom any day. Both he and Harry were looking at Charles when he said it. The wince and the guilty look made Loki laugh. I could even have some fun with this. Just leave me out of it. I don't want to know what sick thoughts you put him through, Harry said as he started instructing Loki on the processes involved in running his bar. He told him where to find everything and what the children were allowed to have. By the time his instruction was complete, it was time to start the tour. Harry loaded the X-Men up, those that had preferred not to go on the hike, and took them to where the children were just arriving at the first enclosure. It seemed Logan was not pushing them too hard after the early morning session. Nobody seemed rushed or out of breath this time. Harry landed the carpet and shrunk and pocketed it, and then started telling the kids about the hippogriffs. There were 5 standing outside the cave today. Harry approached one, bowed to show the children how it was done, and then talked about the physiology, habits, and diet of the creature. It was a school trip after all. When that part of the job was done, Harry asked the children who would like to approach, and he was not shocked that the same 2 Japanese girls were the first to volunteer. After Hisako bowed and the hippogriff bowed back, Harry showed her how to scratch the animal how they liked, and when they seemed comfortable enough with each other, Harry asked her if she wanted to fly on him. Could I? She asked in awe. Harry smiled and levitated her onto the animal, giving her instruction as he went, making certain not to surprise it. It took off and was soon flying around the plateau on its usual path. That seemed to open the floodgates as most of the kids suddenly wanted to meet the animals. Harry started with the youngest ones first and worked his way up. When Hisako returned, Harry and Logan helped the other kids to mount, and soon the hippogriffs were flying in formation, with kids screaming with delight, which just made the animals enjoy the flight all the more. After that, they saw 3 more animals, including a couple of unicorns and a quick visit to the manticore's lair. It was not an intelligent animal and was kept in a secure enclosure. After the tour was complete, Harry opened a portal to the campsite for the kids to get their beach things, and then everyone went to the beach again. Apparently the first half of the day was dedicated to study and exercise, and the second was for fun. Harry made food again while Loki handled the drinks this time. Natasha was enjoying a chat with Ororo. He had been correct in his guess that he'd be making more burgers. The cheeky kid did not order something ridiculous this time. Once lunch was served and the kids started playing games on the beach, volleyball, and sandcastle competitions being chief amongst them, Harry left Loki with one of his new devices. It was a soft serve machine that used the same enchantment he used on water taps, but for ice cream. He had to demonstrate the use and how to change the flavor of ice cream as well. After that, he left to go work on the first device Natasha would need. The ice cream was enjoyed by all, including one diabetic kid who had never had the opportunity before. Harry then went to his new workshop, which was built into a hidden room in a secure location. Nobody knew where it was or how to look for it, which was done by design. Harry always referred to it simply as workshop. This is where he did his tinkering and playing with the possibilities of magic. It was by far one of his favorite pastimes. He spent a good couple of hours in there that day, but was unable to complete anything by the time he felt his mirror vibrate. He answered to see Natasha smiling at him. "Are you about ready to come cook dinner? Some of these kids are starting to look at each other like food." She joked. She turned the mirror so he could see the kids. On average, they were smiling, but there were a couple that kept on sending furtive glances at Natasha, hoping she was calling Harry. When they saw his face, they broke out in smiles. Harry chuckled, and after noting the time of day, he replied, "Yeah, I suppose I can. Sorry I'm not there yet, I was busy, working on a difficult piece of magic, like always." Natasha finished for him with a roll of her eyes and a tolerant smile. "Just get your butt over here." "Yes, dear," Harry said with a smile back at her. He closed the connection and finished up what he was doing before apparating back to the beach. Harry's arrival was met with cheers as the hungry kids started gathering by the bar area, having apparently been told that he was coming back soon. Okay, I've given tonight's meal a bit of thought, and while Logan wanted you to go out and scavenge for meal," here he paused for effect as Logan just smirked, "I was thinking more along the lines of summer salad with some steamed fish." There was silence until Harry quickly finished, "Which I will turn into pizzas for you." There was a large cheer, and Harry just laughed as he started the process from earlier that day again, except with the older kids first this time. He would ask the kids what they wanted on their pizza and prepare for them exactly what they wanted. Because it was getting dark, Harry conjured round tables which would seat 8 people at a time and suspended some magical lights above them. Natasha had not been idle. She had had an idea and asked Tony to help her. They had mounted a large TV above the bar, and it was showing what Harry was currently working on and who he was making it for. This had the added benefit of having the older years showing the younger ones what was good so they could choose from what they had seen. Harry had given Natasha a kiss, right in front of the camera, to some good-natured catcalling and whistles. Harry had not lied. He had transfigured everything from healthy food and nobody could complain. There were even a few who wanted fish and salad, which Harry was more than happy to serve as well. When everybody was done eating, Logan and Darcy took charge again and the kids were escorted to the campsite. Once everyone was sorted, Harry left Loki in charge of the bar. He had a quick word with Hank and left with Natasha to go visit the nymphs.